and welcome to episode 71 of the award-winning combat sports podcast, The Boxing Show, with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment, and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, I am delighted to be joined by the usual twosome this week of Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke as we review a packed weekend of boxing. How are we doing, guys?
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Nice. Yeah.
Right, Barry?
Nice, yeah. Too much boxing on the weekend. Just too much.
Too much boxing.
There's too much boxing.
There was a lot. You were in a you were in Dubai.
I was in Dubai, yeah.
On Friday, weren't you?
Yeah, good show it was. Actually, I'd be genuinely. I'm not going to delve into it, but let's delve into it. It was a good show. It was really matched. So you had some good prospects and some really live opponents.
Any upsets?
No upsets, but no some a young kid called Kareem Osman, who won a silver in the World Championships, lost to Andy Cruz in 2001. Andy commentated on the fight, and but he moved to 5-0, but he got dropped early, and then hurt his ankle. To be fair, I think he twisted his ankle, and but he went through it, so he had to dig it out. We had two kids from Britain, Levi Smith and Tom Somerville, and they both lost, and they were meant to lose, but they both give such a good account of themselves that I think they gained. You know, it was one of those sort of fights. I mean, you go look back and think that one on your record might give you an opportunity that someone want to fight you, but also the way you conducted yourself, you know, whoever they fight, well, they're in a good fight. They showed lots of minerals and all that sort of stuff. It was good, yeah. And then the top of the bill was I can't remember his name though. It
doesn't matter. He's been paid.
I haven't been paid yet. I haven't been paid yet. So until I've been paid, I'm not gonna disclose anyone else. Yeah.
How about you,
Hamid El Bialy, who's a light heavyweight. He's been off for a few years. He came back. He's called the American Pharaoh, is his nickname.
That's a great nickname.
Because he's Egyptian. He's Egyptian and he lives in America. So and he's pretty good. He knocked out this kid Andino, Guillermo Andino. And I remember all these names.
Apart from the people at the top of the bill.
No, that was the main fight. Yeah. So all in all, it was a pretty good fight. Yeah. And yeah, let's not. I won't delve into it. There you go. And third on the bill was Anyway, it was good. But then I had to fly back on the Saturday, and there's just loads of boxing to watch one day. And obviously you've got to see your kids, haven't you? Because apparently family comes first and all that shit. So we have waste of space. Don't have kids, anyone. Don't have kids. Don't move in with anyone. Don't have kids. Living on your own, I think, is a massively underrated thing. I would say that. I've never done it. I've always been with someone else. I'm a shithouse to live on. I'm scared to live by myself. But if I wasn't, I'd live on my own. I have no kids, no partner, no nothing. Then I would be happy.
Right. Andy.
You asked. Don't look at me like I'm the prick. You asked me.
How was your weekend, Andy?
Yeah, it was good. It was Ramirez, Billam-Smith all the way for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Didn't go the way that we were all hoping it would. He's a British fighter, Chris, and somebody we know. So there's no harm in wanting somebody like him to win. But yeah, it was a hard night for him. It was a hard night. End of a hard week for me, actually. You know, just to make this about me, because I think that's I always try to if I can.
That's what this intro bit is all for.
The boiler broke early last week, and it still hasn't been fixed. So it hasn't been freezing cold. The weather's kind of saved us slightly, but it's made for a little bit of a testing week. My wife doesn't like the cold.
I actually have 20 quid.
I'm actually going to keep this. If you think you're getting this back, you're in dreamland. Right, it's going in my pocket, and that's it.
Buy your kid a coat.
We had what was it the other week? Was it the dishwasher or the washing machine?
He's a fucking scammer.
Washing machine. Washing machine. My daughter broke the washing machine basically. But other than that, all is well.
Absolutely right. We do have a lot to get on with, and I have a limited amount of time before I pass out. So we're going to start with Chris Billam-Smith versus Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. Barry, going to come to you first. Yeah. An excellent performance from Gilberto Ramirez. Sorry, Barry.
I can listen to you. You're on your computer all the time.
There's nothing on it. But anyway, yes. Excellent performance from Gilberto. Almost said Gilberto Mendoza, but Gilberto Ramirez to become the unified WBA and WBO cruiserweight champion. Chris Billam-Smith, unfortunately, loses his WBO title, but can take a lot in defeat. But let's start, as we always like to, with the winner of the fight. An excellent performance from Gilberto Ramirez.
It was a really good performance. I disagree. I don't think Billam-Smith can take a lot from it. I think we didn't have no new. I mean, he didn't show anything more than that we didn't already know. I would say, if I can say something correctly, we know how tough he was. He was just way too slow with his feet and everything. You know, he had a good start. I thought he had a good start, ironically, and I thought, no, this is not bad. It's okay. That size might be a problem there for Ramirez, but ultimately throughout the fight and everything, and I thought it was quite an easy fight to score and quite wide. I had much wider than the judges. Yeah, just the speed and the angles and the variety in the work of Ramirez was always kept him a step ahead. Always, he was never like, no, because he's so tough, Billam-Smith, you're never going to overhaul him, but he was just too easy to hit, I thought, to be honest. And maybe they like the guy with the faster hands and all that, but he never really, he should have tried to, and maybe he did try to make Ramirez work really hard really early. Because I still got, even though Ramirez can throw loads of punches, I'm still not sold on his engine. I just think if you force him to fight at an uncomfortable pace, I don't think he can match it. I think he'll struggle. He fights in spurts, but he's really good at it. And I just don't think the feet of Billam-Smith let him down. But Ramirez was fantastic. He was, you know, he's really good, really good. The different angle, every shot was a different angle. You know, the jab was good for him. You know, that left hand through the middle was good as well. And yeah, he was just a step ahead, pretty much all throughout the fight, I thought.
Andy, you covered the fight from TV at the weekend. Your thoughts on it? I watched your rendition. I watched the Sky version of it last night. A great fight, I think, first and foremost. Really entertaining, but one, as Barry says there, so Zurdo Ramirez was just that nose ahead pretty much for the large majority of the rounds.
Yeah, he was, and I thought the scorecards, funnily enough, if you watch the fight as a whole, having a score of 2/3 to 1/3, which is 116, is what 116, 112 is. That's basically what happened. But if that's not how you score boxing, you score boxing round by round. So I think I had 118, 110. But there's no need to really quibble over it, particularly because it was obvious who'd won. And I did feel it was one of those fights where the harshness of how boxing is scored could translate into Chris getting very little on the cards. He put a massive shift in, as he always does, and in that sense he'll have nothing to regret about it, but no one's going to be happy with a defeat, and Ramirez just had too much for him. He did make a good start, and I wouldn't say that was, with hindsight, a bad thing, because sometimes it can be. You can make a good start, the other person starts a little bit slow and you get a bit carried away, and it can almost work against you because you don't do what you'd maybe planned to do. You get a bit drunk on the early success. I don't think that really happened, but what did happen, and we were talking about this before we started, was that at the start of the second round, because he finished the first round well, he kind of stepped right to him and went after him and walked straight onto a really good left hand. And I think the second round it had a big impact on the fight, didn't it? Because Ramirez responded immediately after a pretty tough opening round. He responded immediately and shifted that momentum back straight away, which is not an easy thing to do. And then just sustained it from that point onwards. He never looked like he was going to run out of gas. He never looked like he was really wilting at any point. You could see both of them really feel punches throughout the entire fight. But I thought Ramirez was really, really good, and the way he's able to just turn around that front foot and use those different angles. He's so accurate. Almost everything he threw hit something. It was a great watch, though. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I wonder how he's feeling today and in the next few days, Chris, because these are the real hard days now, aren't they? I think when you get home and people have moved on and started talking about something else, he'll be sore for a while after that too.
Well, he'd be looking back thinking, because how much it was a great fight, and he always puts a shift in, so I don't want to be too cruel on him, but he'll look back and think I could have done a lot more. I mean, not more physically. I mean, he could have boxed a better fight, I think. I think he could have. Ramirez, he made it too easy. Ramirez did really well to pivot off the ropes. When he got the ropes, he pivoted, but he got himself right back into the centre of the ring. But way too often, I thought. I think Billam-Smith, like you say, he'll sit back and these days are hard, but it'd be that. He'd be thinking, I could have just stepped to the side, I should have cut that off. And yeah, I think tactically he could have done things better, and he'll know that. I mean, maybe you still don't beat him. I know that he made the fight hard and tough. And to be honest, it looked like after about from that 6th round on, I think Ramirez, maybe it was 6th round. I wrote it down here, so I know exactly what it was. But there's so much boxing, I had to write notes for the first time in my life. And I know I can't read my own writing. But he looked like he was winning rounds easier, it looked like, until about the 9th when I think Smith had a good round. Sort of, and thought, oh, hang on. Yeah,
the 10th, wasn't it, we were talking about earlier on? That was kind of the...
Yeah, because I was wondering...
10th, yeah.
I said it...
Just looked at your notes.
I said it on commentary when they came out for the start of the 9th, that how much harder would it need to get for Billam-Smith, basically, before Shane McGuigan started to think about it. It's a unification and a massive fight, but... I just felt like if it got worse for him than it was at that point, then he probably would start to think about it. But it never really did, because he's that tough, Billam-Smith, that he never gave the referee or his trainer a justifiable reason to intervene. But at that point, I wondered whether it might just start to go more downhill. In which case he might need saving, but credit to him, he never allowed that to happen. Yeah,
we spoke about it briefly before, didn't we? Sort of a combination of, I think, Zurdo in those 10, 11, 12, kind of getting into those championship rounds. A little bit of the pace of the fight was for a very big, very high pace. And then also the fact that the finishing line was in sight. He's got a big lead on the cards. He probably doesn't need to win those rounds as big as he won. I think 5, 6, and 7 were the really big rounds for him.
After the cut, Smith in one of those rounds.
Yeah, after the cut in the 4th round. So the first cut was on the inside, up just on the eyelid, which Jumbo, esteemed cutman, did a very good job to control in a very difficult place. And I think that there was a second cut that appeared on the... he's got a lot of scar tissue, Billam-Smith, over that eye, so it's kind of the type of fighter who gets cut in a strong breeze, doesn't he, nowadays? But yeah, just going back to Zurdo, Barry and Zurdo's performance, much was made in the build-up to the fight about the physical advantages of Chris Billam-Smith, the size, the strength. I felt like it was actually the physical advantages that Zurdo brought up with him from light heavyweight that were actually the key attributes in the fight.
Well, yeah, he ended up, like that last round, he finished it great, didn't he? Ramirez. I thought what an engine, but I thought he controlled the pace. He dictated the pace, even though Smith was pushing it. So he took, and with the movement and the angles he was getting, with the pivoting, certainly making that makes Smith turn. Then you take away his main attribute is like to be physical presence against you, and so. He looked strong and big, to be fair, Ramirez, he did. But when you look at them both, Billam-Smith looked the bigger, but never once did you feel that was a factor in the fight. It just made him look slower, I think. And you got to give Ramirez that. I think, the fight, I wouldn't say fight management, but the way he controlled it, well, so it is fight management. I think the way he controlled it, even in rocky patches, he never looked in danger. Smith never really, but he was always he was just too easy to hit. But again, you got to put yourself. When Smith got him on the rope, or he stood back and put himself on the rope. As soon as that rope touched his back leg, he go bam, he pivot off, he throw a shot, and he pivot off it, and he put himself right back in the centre of the ring, and that gives you so much room to work with. And Smith just struggled with that movement. So moving up, he used his attributes, didn't he? Like the feet, like the hands. Didn't really, I thought he'd be more in and out with his feet, but he didn't have to. And that's why I was disappointed with Billam-Smith, because I thought you got a guy here who's not really making him, making a real hard target to hit. He's not really bouncing in and out and making Smith overreach. He's there for you. You just got to just quicken up your pace a little bit. And I don't think you could quite do it, Smith.
I thought that Ramirez was good on the inside. We've not really. We've obviously seen him in the past. He's not, as much as he is when he was down at light heavyweight, especially.
How could he not fight in the inside?
Yeah, that's it. But we hadn't really seen it in the past because he never really had to. He enjoyed such a massive size advantage over everybody. He boxed at 68 and 75 that he could keep people at the end of the jab, and kind of a lot of his good work was done from that sort of mid to long range distance. But when Billam-Smith was able to get in on the inside, he did have a lot of success on the inside. But I felt like every time, you go back to what you said about fight management, when he had those successes, Zurdo was always throwing back and then always moving off and reset, and he never allowed Billam-Smith to keep that sustained pressure on him. Always broke it up, be it with movement or throwing back. And obviously, the kind of the speed of the shots as well,
and the angle of the shot as well.
Yeah, that and even with certain instances where Billam-Smith, I felt like was able to get on. So I could talk a little bit more than I usually do on this because I was over there.
Because you're in love with them all, you. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like that would come up today. In our line of work, we make it a thing, don't we, that we don't get personally close to people, whatever it is.
Name one fight I got personally close to.
No, that's the thing. Like it's
no, but
when Joe Cordino won the world title,
your beat's slightly different because you go and see people on location and in the gym and all the rest of it. Relationships start without. Even if you don't really mean them to, it just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
there's a picture of me jumping on the apron for Cordino in one of the title. Yeah, and I don't even know him now. Well, it's just because he's a Cardiff boy. But of course, you get invested, and that's just
I mean, for me, I mean, starting off working in boxing, part time, not even getting paid, was kind of the first time I met CBS when he was.
We know what that feels, don't we?
Yeah, when he would have been 2-0. So at the time, I think we were talking sort of 7, 8 years ago, wherever it is. That you don't kind of think about these things, and then as you go along. I mean, I'm 34. Chris is 1 month older than me. I can't see myself, like Adam Azim. Can't see myself getting, having too much in common with an Adam Azim. Like, not very cool young man. But yeah, those kind of things they kind of happen organically. But anyway.
But you know what though, like he's 34, but it wasn't a defeat where you go, he's got to have a good think about his career now. Do you know what I mean? He didn't get battered. He was in every round, though just losing every round, almost every round I thought, but he was in every round. So, and he's still a good fighter. So I think there's still a future for him at the highest level here. I mean, not the very, very highest, because obviously, the Opetaia is the benchmark, and I know Ramirez will fight him, you would think, but no, I think certainly Billam-Smith can win a world title again, and pretty soon, because they'll fragment very quickly. I think the way we're seeing with the Saudi investment now is that Ramirez will fight Opetaia pretty soon. We would have thought, because they'll demand it and it will happen. So then there'll be opportunities for Billam-Smith. There's loads of fights out there for him, and so I think his future's still bright. I think he's still a good fighter, but I was disappointed in him. I thought Ramirez would win, and it was a really good fight, and he had a really good effort. So it sounds like weird why I would say that, but I just thought that he'd be able to make his physical presence show a little bit more and win a few more rounds. I thought Ramirez would really feel it, and I thought stylistically it was a wrong match for Billam-Smith ultimately, but I did think his size would play a real presence where it would go down to a few of the early rounds, or the middle of the fight might be where Ramirez wins enough of those rounds and has to struggle at the end. I thought, but I got it wrong. I mean,
I was impressed with the durability of Zurdo Ramirez. Not once did he look hurt to the head. He got hit with some clean shots on the inside as well. The type of, I think we've spoken about this in the past. I think notably around the Richard Riakporhe fight, when those cards were a lot closer than I think a lot of people had. And I guess the kind of the sort of line that we came up with is a lot of the work that he does on the inside can be, difficult to see sometimes, and I felt like some of the shots that he landed were good, hurtful shots that, light heavyweight moving up, you would expect them to eventually take its toll and eventually break him down. But I think barring there was a right hook to the body in the 10th round that just momentarily
I can't see it.
Momentarily just kind of forced Ramirez just to back up a little bit, but out of the 12 rounds, that seemed to be the only time he really showed any sign of feeling those shots.
Which was impressive, wasn't it?
It was hugely impressive. I was very impressed with him overall. I thought he was.
Me too.
I thought he was. I mean,
I've always kind of struggled to work out how good he is, because at super middle and light heavyweight, he has some good wins and he boxed some good fighters, but he never really had that really big fight until Bivol, and then he lost that. No shame in that. So it was difficult to kind of figure out how. For me, I've always found it difficult to figure out exactly how good he is. Obviously very good, but like how very good. But he was just really, really, really good to watch, and I doubt that he ever won't be, because at Cruiser he's going to have to do it like that, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I think Cruiser suits him, because I think he's one of those guys who was always been struggling for the weight, hasn't he? Obviously, but now he's at a weight where he can probably train closer to his fighting weight than ever before. Well, obviously that's not. But I mean, some fighters can lose weight somehow and still be sharp as everything, and other fighters just need to be fighting at a weight above, and so they lose a little bit of the physical attribute, strength or size, but it gives them a better energy, and they can just flow better. Because losing weight can make you lethargic. Some fighters can replenish and be fine. Most often, a lot of them can't. And he might just be one of those. This might be the perfect weight for him, where he has loads of energy, and he might lack a bit of that physical strength and size that he had at super middleweight, certainly, and even at light heavyweight to an extent. So cruiserweight, he's always going to be the naturally smaller guy, but not by much. But it gives him that energy, the freedom, and better movement, faster feet. But not against Opetaia, who also has fast feet and plenty of energy. Then that's a great fight now, and all of a sudden, we were hoping to see Billam-Smith as British boxing people. We wanted to see Billam-Smith up against Opetaia. He goes in an underdog against him, as does Ramirez. But after that performance, and that movement, you just think, maybe he'll take some of Opetaia's punches, maybe, and make him think, like Barrios did.
Yeah, it's certainly food for thought. We've obviously seen Jai Opetaia quite a lot over recent, probably 18 months or so. The Jordan Thompson fight, Elisoro, forgive me, and Marius Barrios, etc. That's all of a sudden kind of crept up on us now, Andy, as a pretty good fight.
Oh, it's a great fight. I'm all over that. I know during the week that Oscar was saying that he said Usyk will come back down and fight. That's not happening. Is it?
I spoke to Garcia, and he gave me a brilliant quote on it, and he said, "I'm going to get this because it's actually worth."
Oh, Oscar's talking up his
promotion.
But
the quote that he gave on so it was, Alexander Usyk is the huge name in boxing nowadays, so people can use it as a magic stick for their own benefit free of charge, and many of them choose to do so. Oscar De La Hoya is taking his best efforts to promote his fighter as any promoter would do. And to note, Alexander Usyk in his multiple interviews mentioned considering a lot of options for the future. Among those were becoming a Hollywood star, the president of Ukraine, the minister of sports, the head coach of the Olympic team, and travelling to the moon. So that's how likely that's going to be. Yeah, exactly.
Missing from that list is going back down to cruiserweight to become undisputed again.
He's also got quite a big fight in a few weeks.
Yeah,
I think he's got somebody. Yeah.
But anyway, they don't. I wouldn't say they don't need him. Of course, that would be mega, but they don't really need him because that's a really good fight by itself for 3 belts.
I would imagine if we were to see Zurdo against Alexander Usyk, it would be up at heavyweight.
Yeah, and he shouldn't go up to heavyweight.
No, I wouldn't mind seeing him and Andy Ruiz though at heavyweight. All Mexican fight. Why not? Zurdo versus Andy Ruiz at heavyweight, or Canelo versus Zurdo at 190.
I think 190 would be his ideal weight, wouldn't it?
He boxed Joe Smith at like 193 in his first fight above light heavyweight, didn't he? And he looked well in that fight. But yeah, a really good performance from Zurdo Ramirez. Just touching what Barry just said there, we kind of heard from him over the years. I mean, he's obviously been a big boy at super middleweight and light heavyweight, but you never really know whether or not, because I mean, the general feeling has been that he's just, he came up against a world-class operator in Dimitri Bivol. There's no easy route to a light heavyweight title. There hasn't been for the last, however long you want to go back in boxing history. And he kind of moved up to cruiserweight because cruiserweight didn't have the depth of the Usyk of a few years ago. Usyk, I don't know, Barrios is still around, but when Barrios was Barrios and Garcia and Duarte, etc. And you don't really know, is he moving up because he, does sound disrespectful, because he doesn't want to make the weight anymore?
I think it was, I do. When you're talking, I just think it's laziness.
But when you see the performance now, it's Arsene Goulamirian and then Chris Billam-Smith. I mean, stylistically, both guys are, they're not the most fleet of foot. Yeah. They're guys who will come forward and try and let those shots go. So against somebody with good movement who's come up through the weights, who's got that kind of twitchiness more so from a light heavyweight than a cruiserweight, then you're going to have success against those guys stylistically. Obviously, Jai Opetaia, very, very different proposition to a Goulamirian or a Chris Billam-Smith.
Yeah, again, that's why I always say I thought the stylistic of the matchup didn't bode well for Smith. That's why I thought Ramirez would win. But you still think at some point you're going to make that physical presence tell and make him work. You just got to put pressure on him, even if you're losing rounds, to make him just work hard, and he wants to work. And he just didn't have the feet to do that. But Billam-Smith, and nor did Goulamirian, but Opetaia will. Opetaia's good feet. Opetaia actually, I think his last fight he was fantastic. He got his dad back in, so he's boxing more now. And then we saw those 2 fights against the Brits, and he went through them because they're just below his level. And then they might be. I don't want to slag those kids off because they might be above his. They might Zaro and Taylor because they might be at his level in the end. But no, I don't think they will. But but right now they're not. So
right now they're not prepared to box them.
Yeah, so after the Braiders first fight, he came back with a below the level. just me because he had a lot of time off with the broken jaw and what have you. But then had another one. You said, this is no good for you. He's going to, we all thought he was a destroyer, but he wasn't. And then against Brady the second time, we've seen that he's not. He's a boxer by trade, but he's got back to it now. I think that, and he's better for it. I think he has good feet, fast hands. I think he's cleverer than what we give him credit for, and we know how tough he is. And forget about his demeanour outside the ring, where everyone's scared of him because he looks right through you, like he wants to eat you, which is all fun and games. But like that doesn't matter in the ring. What people look like. He's actually what's got him to the top is his boxing ability more than his raw strength and his scary eyes.
He's very sharp, isn't he? For those first 3 or 4 rounds, you can tell he has that amateur season behind
you can
him.
see
For those first 3 or 4 rounds, he is a very, very dangerous operator.
And that's where Ramirez wouldn't have it all his own way. And plus, he got the size as well to add with that, and he does have power.
And somebody in Opetaia as well who can match him for foot speed, and also is naturally bigger. He's got fast hands. Andy, just coming over to you, one of the things that I was very impressed with from Zurdo throughout fight week is he was very, very relaxed. Obviously, he's had 47 fights in the build-up to the fight, so of course you've been around the block, and he's also been in some decent level fights. Admittedly, he hasn't had that big breakout performance, so to speak. I mean, he has now in the cruiserweight division, but down at light heavyweight. But you would feel like a bout with him against him and Jai Opetaia, if he can get through those early rounds, and look, we've seen at the weekends he can hold a shot from a fully fledged cruiserweight in 10-ounce horsehair gloves. If he can get through those first 4 or 5 rounds against Jai Opetaia, we've seen Myris Bradis, another experienced campaigner, somebody in a similar ilk from experience level as a Zurdo Ramirez. That fight could get very interesting after 4 or 5 rounds.
Yeah, I think it could. I absolutely think it could, and those early stages will be key, as they often are. But what I was really impressed with Ramirez is that as he was coming up through super middleweight and light heavyweight, obviously he was massive on the night, and you'd hear all this about, he's 200 plus pounds when he boxed Dominic Bosel. I remember talking to a couple of guys who went over with Bosel for that, and they saw him on the night, Ramirez, and they were just, oh my God. But now he's in a weight division where the other person's going to be bigger, and he's comfortable with it. He's comfortable under pressure. He's comfortable under that pressure. And I always find that really impressive when you've got someone who's just, okay, this is fine. This is fine. I've got the skills. I've got the ability to find a way. And he is relaxed, and he's been doing this a long time. Most of them have, but some have taken it up later than others. He just looks completely at home in there. I just really enjoyed watching him, and we've enjoyed watching Opetaia. They're two very different people in terms of their mentalities. Opetaia is super intense, but that's just the way he lives his life all of the time. I was talking to his guy, Mick Francis, when we were last in Saudi, and I said, how do you live like that? Like, he can't be like this all the time. And he said, oh, no, he's like this all of the time. But that's him. Whereas Ramirez is just super chilled out, isn't he? Laid back, just doesn't really seem to blink at anything that's going on around him. So just in all sorts of ways, it's a really good matchup, and yeah, we are going to see it, aren't we, sooner rather than later. Ramirez might feel like he needs a bit of a break, because that was hard. Even though he won quite clearly, it was still really hard.
Yeah, it was a grueling fight. I really enjoyed the fight. I thought it was an excellent fight. I don't think, and for the amount of shots that were thrown in that fight, the referee didn't have to really get involved at all. There wasn't an awful lot. There was no fouling really in the fight. It was a very like another fight on the card, Oscar Duarte and Better Akhmedov. It was a very clean but brutal fight. Okay, right. We've discussed what next for Gilberto Ramirez. Barry, what next for Chris Billam-Smith?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think again, I think it was a good fight to watch. He didn't get battered. He was in every round, but he lost wide, I thought. But he's still a good fighter. I don't think it. I mean, it tarnishes his stock a little bit, but I don't. He's 34, but he haven't got miles on the clock. I don't think. So, he's good enough to go again if he wants to. It's up to him, isn't it, really? If he wanted 34, if he wants to, that was a big payday, I hope. I'm pretty sure it was, and I'm hoping it was. Then what's his desire on to go on with? I think that's it. If he has the desire to want to go on, then I think he can fight for another world title and win another world title, I think. I don't think he beats Ramirez second, again, now after seeing that. And I didn't think he'd win Saturday either. And I don't think he'd beat Opetaia. I never thought he would. But I'd fancy him against Gulamarian. and a lot of other cruiserweights. So he's still a world-class fighter. I mean, sometimes you see a fighter get beaten, you just go, that's it now, he's fallen off the edge. So he can carry on fighting, but you gotta go down a level, and that's his new ambition now, that he's never quite going to get there again. But I don't think that is the case with Billam-Smith. It's just the age factor, because however fresh and young he looks, he's still 34. Is he? Look, if he was you, because you look about 60, then I go
1 month older than me.
Yeah, no, but he looks like 5 years younger.
But just 5.
I'd be nice to you. I'd be nice to you. No, but it's like, so you just think he got a few years left in, I think, but not a lot. And I always worry about fight. If you earn, there's always, you think, I'm there and the money's there now. But if you earn good money now, and you don't want to be boxing too long in your 30s, because boxing has more of an effect after you retire than it does when you're boxing. You don't see it, and then the effect happens after, because of all those punches you've taken, and physically your body, all the training, it all catches up you later on. Look at me, I used to be 6'2", but and I had hair and sense, fucking hell. But so I think I worry about that. But just for solely what he is in his career, he could go on and still have another 2-3 years, I think, of success. So, but where does he drop down to? No, that's the question. You don't want to drop too low. So he's in, there's domestically, there's loads of fights out there for him in there that he could just drop a little, because domestically in the UK, they're all European level fighters, isn't he? That's the truth. So that's not a bad little step down for you, step back up, or he just waits for another big bill in Saudi or Saudi Riyadh season sponsored show and fights another world class cruiserweight. I wouldn't argue with that. I mean, that's a little bit of a rest, but come back no March sometime next year, and he's back running, looking for titles again. Because ultimately, there's something on the line. Those titles, there'll be a spare title there around somewhere.
Well, Mikhailin's got the WBC.
It's the IBF. It's the one, isn't it? Because they're the ones who always make their title vacant quickest. Good old IBF.
But Mikhailian, I think his mandatory is Ryan Rizicki. So we're still waiting to see what happens with that. But WBC convention in 3 or 4 weeks, so we'll find out what's going on.
You going?
Yeah.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Hamburg.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have to go to Tashkent or somewhere like that. Shout out Tashkent, lovely place, obviously. But yeah, it's like a 2 hour flight away. I mean, we went to Acapulco the other year, like a 10-hour flight and then a 5-hour bus ride. So glad we're not doing that again. Same question to you, Andy. Obviously, you followed and covered Chris's whole career, as we all have, but namely on Sky Sports, of this last kind of 2.5 years, really, where it's been very much of an emotional roller coaster. If you're in the Billam-Smith business, you go from boxing on DAZN, not headlining bills, to headlining against Isaac Chamberlain 6 weeks notice, and then you get the fight against Lawrence Okoli, ex-stablemate, world title at the stadium, and Riakpur and it's been a very 3 or 4 years ago it would have been sort of beggars belief that a Billam-Smith could have the run that he's been on over these last few years. But taking into consideration the weekend, where do you feel like he should go next? Barry just mentioned there about domestic fights. Do you think that could be an option, or do you think it's international and above?
I think it's international and above, because I don't think he'll look at anyone domestically and feel like he could drop that far off. I feel like he will want to keep going, because I think there's plenty left there, and I think he'll feel like he could have done better. And as more time passes, I think that feeling will grow. It generally does, doesn't it? And I know people talk a lot about how he's too easy to hit sometimes, and the way they go on about it, it's like he spent his entire career eating punches. That just hasn't happened. Over the last few fights he's taken, he's taken
world level.
Exactly. Over the last few fights he's taken some big shots, but you're not going to win a world title without doing that, particularly at the higher weight. So I just feel like sometimes a bit of a narrative has emerged that he walks through, he fights with his face. He doesn't do that. You are going to have to take some punches, and he did take plenty on Saturday, and that was over a 12-round period, and that does put miles on your clock. Saturday is the kind of fight that will put miles on your clock. You can't have too many like that. But it just comes down to desire with him, doesn't it? And I think for him you've got to be able to get up for it. And when you've been a world champion and you boxed at the stadium and you boxed in Saudi, the motivation has to be there, and the kind of knot of fear needs to be there. So they need to be proper opponents. and get yourself back up in those rankings and look to become a 2-time world champion. You look at the WBC and I think you're right. He does have that's what he's going to have to do next, Mikhailian. But that might be one that they would look at, going down that route, because I feel like that's a winnable fight for him.
Before we move on, my kind of 2 pence of it. I think he needs a break for a little bit of time. It's
Yeah,
a hard
agreed.
fight at the weekend, and he's been in these big events, which aren't just big fights. We haven't mentioned because of the Lawrence Okoli fight. That's not just a world title fight. It's a world title fight at the stadium, ex-stablemate, all of those other kind of intangibles around it. He's become a parent in the last couple of years as well. We all know how that changes you. And then he's, of course, as mentioned there, been out to Saudi Arabia, etc., etc. I don't necessarily feel he'll box for 3 or 4 years. I think maybe it will be 3 or 4 fights maximum.
Yeah, me too.
That is 3 or 4 years in this era.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, potentially. Well,
he's
been boxing twice a year, hasn't he? Generally,
I think there 3. Yeah, I think you're right. I think 3, 4 fights, because that's at that high level. And he is so painstaking and attention to detail and all of those things. And when you pay that much attention, and it'd be easy to think that everybody does, but they don't. People go about things different ways. When you pay that much attention to detail, the motivation needs to be really high, doesn't it? To want to keep doing that. I'd say that kind of time span's about right, and that's long enough to get another crack at a world title and hopefully win one.
So you see yourself in it. How he sees himself. Now all this look at Billam-Smith. No one ever thought he'd get to where he got to, and he says, "Yeah, I never thought." Does he say that? I never thought I'd get to. I never ambitious. I don't know, but does he? I've never heard him say it.
I think he's getting a bit bored of all that.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
I get the feeling that maybe he is getting a bit bored of all that. No. Okay, we've said that now. We've done that now. Everybody keeps telling me that. Look at Billam-Smith. Because if it were me, I'd be thinking to myself, like, there's a big difference between people saying, "Oh, well, if Chris can do it, anyone can do it." No. He's the exception that proves the rule. He proves that it can be done. But not that if you just graft, anyone can do it. Because you've got to have a level of talent.
I know, you're just saying, what do you mean everyone can do it? Like, I mean, that's shit. I mean, some people's talent don't show straight away. I think that's probably better to say. Some people's talent takes a longer time to see it. Maybe that's what it is with him. Just, you didn't see it straight away. He just looked like a kid. Because he is relatively easy to hit than you'd like. But, but we all got our... I couldn't punch to save my life, could I? And it's all you got your strengths and your weaknesses, and you was trying to hone your strengths, hoping your strengths to overcome your weaknesses and get you over the line, and that's what's happened to him. Yeah. And he's taking opportunities and he's taking fights maybe when maybe would be too early for him, and he just kept winning. That's what he's done. He just kept winning and won a world title. And when he won a world title, by the way, he had to beat Okoli, and no one wanted to fight. People forget that very quickly. Okoli was horrible to watch, but worse to fight against than watch. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather watch him than fight him. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's debatable. I know that, but I mean,
I'd rather fight him than watch the Matty Askin fight. Okay.
Yeah, but what I mean is, whatever you look at it, if he hits you, you're done. And so when we all say about people saying it's too easy to hit and it's a little bit cruel, but I certainly thought that Okoli was going to win because of the bravery of Billam-Smith. That's what he's shown. The bravery that he will walk through if he has to get over the line. That's what's made him such a good fighter. But I think someone like Okoli, you think that bravery is going to get you knocked out at some point because he is going to detonate, but it never. So he has an ability there to smother you and take away your superpower. That's his superpower, is take away your power, your strengths, maybe. And he couldn't do it on Saturday. But that doesn't mean he's a spent fighter. But again, it's how he sees himself. If he sees himself as a world-class fighter, I'm only that level, you just can't envision yourself dropping below.
I can't.
But is he a big enough name?
I can't see him dropping down to box a Chev Clarke or somebody like that.
But the thing is, though, they're all going to be going, they're right on his heels now, and they going, I'm your guy. And, so he might think, I'm not doing that. If I can't get this fight, I'm not going there. So I'm just going to quit. Some people, that happens to some people. I'm not dropping down that level, but they go, listen, that's your only way forward now. Maybe. I'm not saying that is. There might be loads of options for him, but there might be no options for him. It's funny how the belt sometimes defines you more than you define the belt. It'd be interesting to see what it happens.
But there's also not. Yeah, I was just about to say there's not that many people who have sold at 18,000 that
Yeah.
he did at Dean Court.
I'm not picking on your
No,
boyfriend, Jamie.
I'm
I'm just saying,
Barry, can you stop
that
that,
now
please?
becomes-
stick up for him. Like,
Stop with that, please.
No,
Anyway,
that now becomes
No,
really important because it means that you don't like slide into that pack of being high risk, low reward. You know, you bring something to the table. You really bring something to the table if you're able to sell out a stadium. So if you're someone like Michelian, I don't know how he does with tickets. You know, boxing in Germany. I've seen him a few times actually. I think actually he does okay. But if you're going to get an offer for good money, to go and fight outdoors in Bournemouth, then you might well fancy that, and he can bring that.
German TV's not as strong as
CBS can bring that. Yeah, exactly. It's nothing like what it was.
Yeah, and it could well be a case of one return fight with somebody who is ranked in the top 15 of a governing body to get yourself into position to have that big fight, and then after that, it kind of, you see where it goes.
Yeah,
but I'd be surprised if he'd be kind of content to box a Vidal Riley or something. I know it would be early for Vidal Riley, but somebody like that in say 12 months time, I wouldn't have thought, particularly when, you know, in the position, and we all know that the Saudis have kind of positioning kind of undisputed titles, and you know, you're one fight away from a big fight against Jai Opetaia, you're one fight away from a big fight against this
But who
person,
knows what happens in 12 months time? Like, you know, they say he has a bit of a break now, and if any fighter deserves a break, it's him. He has a bit of a break. He didn't get battered on Saturday. I thought he lost wider than the judges had it, but you know, he was competitive in every round against a good fighter. So you know, it's and he's always in good fights, isn't he? So you know, I mean, his future's still relatively bright if he wants to do it, how he sees himself. So, but in that 12 months, that's maybe one fight for him rather than two now. No.
Yeah.
So in that 12 months, who knows? That Clarke might be a bigger draw. You know, Vidal Riley might have proved that he is generally, you know, up there with the best in the world. You know, 12 months in this sport can be the landscape can change dramatically all of a sudden. You just never know. Beterbiev moves up and needs an opponent just before he boxes for the world title. Though he wouldn't want to take a fight.
Jake Paul. Which I was really disappointed to see, by the way. I didn't necessarily think he had that in him. I didn't like it when Myris Bradis did it either a few years ago.
He did it weirdly.
He made a rap song. I don't see Beterbiev doing a rap song, but I actually quite like to see it.
I would definitely like to see that.
Yeah, see if he's got any skills. But yeah, I thought it was a very good fight. Kind of what I meant in my opening salvo. I thought it was a very good fight, and I thought he performed better than the Americans expected him to. And that's something that, you know, could bear fruit. I think, you know, losing a world title, we mentioned about kind of the value being wrapped up in your belt. It's never a great thing to lose a world title, of course. But you know, he's done well in the past at selling tickets. I think he could probably get something going, and then I can't remember which one of you said it. Barry. Depends on where he sees himself, what he wants to do, and what the plan is. I think the plan will be to try and become a 2-weight world champion. I don't think there are the big money fights without a belt at cruiserweight, but I think that's kind of the same for everybody. I don't think there's anyone in the division that brings, you know, like a Ryan Garcia is sort of an outlier, but Ryan Garcia doesn't need a belt, you know, but there's not really that person at cruiserweight.
No.
Also, don't necessarily think he'd be in a hurry to go to bridgerweight either.
No one should.
I mean, there's a conversation for another day. We've got a lot to get through. But yeah, a really, really good fight, an entertaining fight, and an excellent performance from Gilberto Ramirez. I was very, very impressed with him. Okay, we're going to try and whiz through the rest of the card because we've got to talk about Mike Tyson and Jake Paul as well, which is going to be fantastic. So Andy, going to come to you first for William Zepeda versus Tevin Farmer. William Zepeda, number one with all of the governing bodies. You know, a highly touted man in the 135-pound division. I think everybody had expected him to come through Saturday night in probably slightly easier fashion than we saw. Dropped, you know, fairly heavily in the fourth round by that shot by Tevin Farmer, but rallied back and won a split decision.
He did, and it turned out to be a really good fight for him. I wouldn't say at any point did I feel like he was going to lose, although through 5 rounds I would have had it even. He won the first 3, lost 4 and 5, plus the point for the knockdown. At the time I felt like, not that it was a flash knockdown because he got properly hit and went down, but got up quite quickly. I felt like it wasn't really a problem, but when I watched it back at the end, I think he did get dropped pretty hard, didn't he?
He was hurt, yeah. He
got
up quickly,
dropped pretty hard.
He was hurt when he was up.
And
Is
so
that
he did
sorry to
well.
interrupt. Is that a concern? I mean, Farmer, not a noted puncher, even down at 130 pounds. He's up at 135 pounds. You somebody like William Zepeda, you're gonna find yourself in position to be hit quite a lot due to the nature that he boxes.
I think it would be a slight concern. I think it was maybe more the fact that
he's been done before, though.
Yeah, maybe not that he was complacent necessarily, but he got on top of him, and Farmer was doing fine. He was picking some decent shots, but Zepeda was kind of overwhelming him with volume and maybe just got slightly careless. But he did seem to be there for that that counter left hand, basically, that counter southpaw left hand. He's boxed a ton of southpaws recently, though, so he
Cabrera,
should be
Hughes.
Loads. He should be used to it. And then in the second half of the fight, he won it a work rate, I thought. Farmer probably throughout the course of the fight did pick the better punches. If you had to pick your top 20 punches from the fight, I'd say that would have been dominated by Farmer, who I was really pleased to see do as well as he did, because I did a few of his fights when he was super featherweight champ, and he had a tough start in boxing and he could easily have gone under, but he stuck with it and made a real success of things. And he's not finished. You know, he's still good. He knew what he was there for. He knew the role he was being cast in. And all through the week, he was telling people that that's not who he is, and that's not what was going to happen. And he was right. He was right.
Yeah, I actually had the fight wider than the judges in Zepeda's favour, purely because of the work rate and the activity. And I felt like, while I agree with you, while Farmer was landing the standout shots, and I don't think Farmer was ever really hurt at all, head or body.
I don't think he was.
But I felt like it wasn't just an isolated incident with the left hand with Zepeda. I felt like he felt that a few times. There was the uppercut. He obviously the straight left hand is what dropped him. That landed a few times afterwards and seemed to get a reaction. He also brought the uppercut through as well, which seemed to buzz Zepeda a few times. Barry, if you're Shakur Stevenson watching that, what are you thinking?
Well, thinking the same you thought anyway. I could beat him. No, I think what he showed, what Farmer showed for people who are going to box Zepeda now is that how you negate his work rate, or you slow him down a little bit. And it's not, you think it's to be the feet moving, but it's not. I think it's that shoulder turn. It's like he saw the way that when the knockdown was lovely, he turned, and then so he hides that shot, so he lets you throw, turned, and then right down the middle there. It was a beautiful time shot. And the way he fights it, because he's coming forward at some point when he throws, he's going to be squared up because he's looking for the next shot. So you almost got to slide inside his punches rather than back up. You back up. That gives him the momentum, the impetus to want to keep coming forward, and you know you end up on the end of the punches because he doesn't care if he misses a payday. He wants to just throw high work rates. But if you slow him down, so if you can slip inside the first one and whack him with any shot, I'm going to be hard. You're not going to hit him hard. If you just slip inside and hit him, even though he still throws, it just slows him down enough, and then in the end he'll stop throwing. So I think someone like Stevenson, who has great footwork but also better timing than Farmer as well, you would feel, will think, actually, I just got to be able to be brave enough to slip and slide inside the shots. And to anyone who fights Zepeda now at a high level, won't be looking to dance around like they thought they could have. I'll keep making a miss and turn him and turn it. It'll just be, I'll be slipping and sliding. So that little shoulder roll, that little thing that Farmer does so well, which just suited it. So, you know, he did lose the fight, and I thought he lost the fight quite clearly, like you did. Maybe not as much, but enough. But he showed the blueprint to beat him, I think, for everyone else. So that's a worry for Zepeda, because they've shown actually if you don't run, you be brave and you sort of don't go at him, but you got to be brave enough to just make him miss with the first shot, and then you can slide inside, pop him, and that slows him down. Because he was, I know it was only like you said, in the second half of the fight where Zepeda really dominated in the end. All sheer, not massively dominated, but all sheer work rate. It was the first half of the fight. I think Farmer was really in it because of that, because he was able to just slow him down. Zepeda works at such a work rate, and you just think your feet would do all that, wouldn't you? The feet would take him away, but he just quickens his feet and just suffocates you. So he wasn't able to do that. So I thought it was a good performance by both, actually, because Zepeda didn't stop. He got knocked down. That was a good knockdown. That was a knockdown to make you panic, and he never. I mean, he had to sort of like take his time, slow him down a little bit more, I would have thought, but in the end, he still carried on with the same vein, what he had to do. He didn't know, he believes in no, this is all a fight, and I'm not going to try and change it for anybody. But, you know, I always thought his style was going to be, when he stepped up a level, I didn't think he'd get this far with that style, to be fair. I thought at some point he just route one. but he's a bit better than what I think he's better than what I think he is. I think, but Farmer's clever, tricky, and seasoned. So I think Farmer gets beat by a lot of fighters. I do at lightweight, but not fighters who come right at him like that.
I mean, he's, in his last 2 fights, he gave Raymond Murataya a really difficult fight, and obviously dropped William Zepeda.
He's clever. Isn't
We
he,
know at
Farmer?
135 pounds, Andy, that there's a lot of big names there, and getting a world title shot is not the easiest thing in the world. What about Tevin Farmer against Keyshawn Davis? If Keyshawn Davis doesn't get Berinchik.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, why not? You know, he is a particular kind of test, isn't he?
It's an easier night for Davis.
Yeah, I think. Actually, I don't know.
It affords a perfect barometer, doesn't it? If for whatever reason you can't get the Berinchik fight, by all accounts, that's what they're trying to go for.
Right.
But that could be something. It's kind of one of the lightweight hot shots that he hasn't been in the ring with. Tevin Farmer.
That's true.
And if you're Keyshawn Davis and you stop him, because of course Raymond Murataya, although he did hurt Tevin Farmer in the last round, didn't stop him, and of course William Zepeda didn't really come close to stopping him.
Yeah. If he can't get the fight that he wants, Davis, then you are into that kind of game of top trumps, aren't you? Basically.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Barry, going to come to you. I don't want to spend too long talking about this fight because it wasn't very good. Jose Ramirez versus Arnold Barboza Jr. It wasn't an eliminator because of whatever reason. I mean, there was kind of...
He didn't want to pay a sanctioning fee, did he?
There was contrasting stories beforehand because the WBO came out and said, no, it was never going to be a WBO thing. And then obviously in the ring afterwards, he kind of went, oh, I'm really sorry. Yeah. Can I have my title shot now? And hello? Hello?
Yeah. So I read that. I saw Chris Mannix, I think, wrote something, didn't he? Basically, he seemed to get the news that he wasn't going to be eliminated. And I saw a quote tweet from the WBO where they basically said, well, we didn't want it to be an eliminator anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was all a bit.
But Arnold Barboza Barry did emerge victorious. 97, 93, 96, 94 twice. Seemed to negate Ramirez on the back foot a little bit. Ramirez just struggled to sustain anything, didn't he?
I think Barboza boxed well, first of all, but I think Ramirez flattered him massively. I think Ramirez there's not a massive notable decline. Massively, I think he still does the same things that he's always done, but he's just slowed just a little bit. It's only a little bit, but it's enough to make him more exposed. So like they were all close competitive rounds, but just the jab and the movement, the angles for Barboza, so he just found he had too much space to work. And I think Ramirez of a couple of years ago wouldn't have allowed him that space, and just a little bit faster off the mark, and he wasn't. So Barboza was just a little bit quicker throughout the fight. That's what it was. Every round was pretty much similar, I thought, and I thought Barboza won it close. It was a close fight, but I think it was more to do with Ramirez's decline than it was with Barboza showing any massive improvement. I mean, better than he was against Cully, but Cully as a McComb, sorry, yeah. And Cully, you can be there. No, against Sean McComb, but I think McComb's style's all wrong for him. That's
6
why.
foot southpaw.
Yeah. And when you're a boxer and a counter puncher, then that's a nightmare for you. And Ramirez, would have been sliding in the distance quicker a few years back. So yeah, I think it's more to says about him than Barboza, and that's not fair on Barboza, unfortunately. But that's how I saw it. But it was a decent little fight to watch. It wasn't great, but it was it was all right. But and it was always something going on. But he was too fast, and he could catch in different angles better for him, and he was just faster off the mark. That was all it was. And he looked like just an older fighter getting beat by a younger fighter. That's what I mean. Just like a guy just at the end of his tenure, just trying to hold on. Because Ramirez looks good, but I think, and he always looks against a fighter who wants to go at him. That helps him out. But even Ramirez in his peak would have just closed that gap a lot quicker with smarts behind the jab, of course. But he would have got in there a lot quicker. And I think he was just getting too close to the target. He was getting his front foot. Like he couldn't throw the left hook properly. He was sliding in. Like you got to slide in, but when you slide into the target to throw a hook with your lead hand, you got to slide in with your foot. Let me tell you the boxer, Ramirez, because you're not as good as me. You got to slide in with your foot over to an angle. He was sliding his foot too close to the target against Barboza, so then he couldn't throw the hook. He had no power on the shot. He was just like smothered his own work. So he made the right movement, and I think that's just just a little bit of age seeping in at it, because he would have stepped over to the angle a bit more, and then the shot, it gets the better arc with the shot, and there's more of a weight in the punch.
I felt like he looked like he just didn't have that zip in his work, and I felt the same when he boxed Rancis Barthelemy as well. I think he's been making 140 now for 12 years. Ramirez, there or thereabouts. I think he'd been sort of 141,
it's gone,
142.
Hasn't it?
Yeah,
it's gone. That little bit. It's a game of fractions, as we know. Well, it's not a game. It's a sport of fractions, and he just couldn't at any point find his distance, and he was trying so hard, and it just wouldn't happen. And you felt like, I stopped short of saying it, but you felt like you're watching someone where it's just gone.
Shot
it?
worn.
It's
just a little bit, not quite shot, but shot worn.
No, it's just gone. Yeah. You think about, I commentated on this fight against Maurice Hooker, where he just, just a marauding, savage, tremendous performance, and he's not that anymore, and it comes to everybody.
I think he's had some hard fights over the years as well as boxing. RGBA, Robert Garcia Boxing Academy. I'm quite sure he's had some pretty tasty spars in there over the years as well.
I think it takes some recovering from as well when you box for undisputed and you really think you're going to win, which obviously you would have done, and you don't, and you're staying in the same division, and the chances of getting an opportunity to fight for undisputed again, which is really what you want to try and achieve that thing that you haven't managed to do, it's almost certainly not going to happen. How do you... I think that makes it difficult to find the motivation to really continue, because that's what you want, but you're not going to get that chance. Almost certainly, you're not going to get that chance. And he's not boxed much since Taylor, and he admits that was a mistake. He gave himself too much time to think about it and sit in it. I wouldn't be surprised if Robert Garcia kind of sits him down in the next couple of weeks or wherever and just says, look, I think we've done our work.
Do you see Barboza being a threat to the champions at 140? It's still kind of a throne without a king at the minute, isn't it?
No, I don't. I don't. He got the win, and that's always the most important thing. But I thought with what was in front of him, I don't know why he just didn't try and win more comprehensively than he did. And that basically.
Okay, sticking with the 140-pound division, another fight on the card. I mentioned that in this week's Boxing News, available tomorrow. It's very rare that you get a replacement fight. That's better than, I felt anyway, stylistically certainly, than the original fight. But I feel like that's what we got this weekend, Barry, when Oscar Duarte stepped in with the world's greatest 10-4 fighter, Batir Akhmedov. Brilliant fight, as expected beforehand. Another fight, we kind of touched upon it with Zurdo, Billam-Smith. The referee had the best seat in the house because he didn't have to do anything. It was 10 rounds where I don't think they were broke
ice cream
once.
In round 4. Did you see him with the ice cream? This is good.
But yeah, a terrific fight. Oscar Duarte, obviously a unanimous decision winner. One card in particular, the 98-92, caused a lot of raised eyebrows across social media. I did feel like Duarte just did enough with the heavier shots.
Just maybe. It was a close fight, wasn't it? Because Akhmedov, the movement of Akhmedov, he just every time he threw a punch, he did something else, and he could move and swing back and forth. I thought it was a really good effort from him actually. But Duarte, every time he threw a shot, you could see the impact it was having, especially later on. So I think he maybe just did enough, but it was. I didn't sort of sit down and score that round by round because it was so like action packed. I thought this is all right, this isn't it? Like, really. Early in the card, like this is good. This is a good little scrap. But yeah, it was good, wasn't it? It was and that's a good fight that's a good win for Duarte, because that's a real test of that, isn't it? You get over the line with him, a guy who could be a world champion.
It should have been.
Should be a world champion. But so that puts him right in the shot window. No, that was the best fight he could have took, I thought, because it also because we asked him a lot of questions, he answered it as well, and he knows what he can do now against a guy who can be really busy and really awkward as well. By the way, Akhmedov, I thought it was a really good performance.
Andy, we're discussing the 140-pound division: Ramirez, Barboza, Duarte, Batir, Akhmedov. How far do you think Adam Azim is from those names?
Oh, that's a good question.
Thanks.
That's a good question. I think he's a little way off just yet. Because that was a tremendous fight. between Duarte and Akhmedov, and a really hard fight as well. And I'm not saying Azim couldn't do that now, but I don't think we need to find out if he can do that quite yet, because that would be really deep. I feel for Akhmedov because he's had 4 defeats now where he could have won all of them and he hasn't got any of them, and that is a rough rub of the green. I thought it was really close at the end when it finished. Interestingly, you look at the corners and he seemed super confident. Joel Diaz seemed really confident.
Joel Diaz came over to the commentary table and he said, "If we don't get this one, I retire here today."
Duarte, meanwhile, and he had Robert Garcia as well, didn't he? They were more subdued, but you can't take too much from body language of corner reactions, and I thought it could go either way. But as for Azim was there, obviously, wasn't he? And it was a great night for him to be there. I fancy Azim against Barboza.
That's what I mean. While that was quite kind of it is. I mean, it was the higher level fight. It was whatever happened with the WBO, but it was.
It wasn't though, was it? In the end,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I think Duarte and or Akhmedov are harder fights than Ramirez and or Barboza.
Yeah, agreed.
Jr,
Agreed. I wouldn't be in a big rush to put him in with either Duarte or Akhmedov. Not right now. No. I think at some point, maybe that'll happen naturally. Interested to see what Akhmedov chooses to do now, because it'd be easy to get a bit disillusioned with everything, but I don't really know his story, his background. Obviously, you're going to you'll be absolutely fuming that you haven't got any of those decisions, but if he's making good money and he's living he's living a life that he could maybe not have imagined, then it's possibly makes it a little bit easier to take and a bit easier to keep going, even though you're probably going to be put into those kinds of fights. You might be looked at as the guy who, as a gatekeeper kind of guy, whereas you think of yourself and you feel like you should be a world champion.
So
it's a difficult headspace for him, to be honest.
He's the type of guy, though, if he was a gatekeeper, he could upset some kids, couldn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah, he could, and he could make some money as well.
And he's the type of guy who's going to be avoided. Yeah. That's another fight. Yeah. If you would have got that Saturday, you wouldn't have screamed, would you?
No, absolutely not.
Do you know what I mean? That's another fight that he'll see. That's another fight that I haven't got. And I could be 4 fights in my world title reign by now. He was what's going on?
And he got that one by stepping in short notice.
25 times what I've earned now.
And even see someone like Dalton Smith, why would he want to fight him? So close to getting a world title fight. Jack Cattrall, why would he want to fight him? I mean, you fancy Cattrall to beat him, but why would he want to fight him? There's the risk and reward just doesn't weigh up, does it?
No, and he got that fight by stepping in short notice, which made his performance all the more impressive. But he's clearly just never been out of shape a day in his life, I wouldn't imagine.
He's an unbelievably tough guy, really, really good fighter. Very much enjoyed his career, probably more so than he has, unfortunately.
I think that's the case for lots of boxers. Yeah. I was watching it on Saturday after that fight. Actually, I don't know what kind of inspired it, but I watched that fight, and Macklin was telling me before we went on air that this week, I think it was yesterday actually, it was 23 years since his pro debut, and I watched that fight, this rock hard fight that he was in a few of them, and at the end I just turned around to him and I just said, the more I watch boxing, the older I get, the more I just don't understand how you did this, how any of you do this. And he just laughed and just said, the older I get, the less I understand how I did it as well, because it is just, my God, you watch something like that and you just think, Jesus Christ, this is a hard game.
Absolutely, and very hard game if you go through all of that and you don't get what I'm sure Batir Akhmedov thinks was his just rewards. Okay, Barry, going to come to you first. Oscar Collazo. Sensational performance, I'm going to call him knockout CP Freshmart because I'm tired. Yeah. But a fantastic performance from Oscar Collazo. 2 knockdowns in the 6th round before closing the show in spectacular fashion in the 7th to unify the WBA and WBO and of course claim the Ring Magazine minimum weight title. Thought it was a fantastic performance from Collazo.
Yeah, his rhythm was just lovely. Always swaying back and forth. Timed everything coming forward. The right hook, the first knockdown was lovely. Even the second knockdown, it was a straight left first of all. When it steadied him up with a straight left, and then the knockdown again, and the finish with that uppercut was just phenomenal. He upped the gear, didn't he? He just all of a sudden he just went. He was controlling everything, and I don't know what round it was. Maybe 4 or something. He just went. Maybe 5, he just went, right, I'm going up a gear here now, straight away. just went boom, and he just changed the pattern of the fight. Or a fight he was winning quite comfortable, like enough, just changed it like that. Just put his foot on the gas a little bit more, and showed for a lot of fighters how you manage a fight when you're on top. Or like, my new thing now is fighters coasting. You know, you can get yourself into trouble. You fight you're winning, and you're a quicker, sharper fight. You coast it. I mean, if it's not in your ability to finish it, then maybe you always have to sort of coast and you be careful. But coasting a fight can be really dangerous at a certain level, and that could have been dangerous for him, coasting a fight against a guy like that. No another champion who can punch. But he just controlled everything. The rhythm was there. Everything was working for him. He wasn't content with that. He didn't make any mistakes. He just upped the pace a little bit more. There were more snap to his punches, and it was just a proper world class performance. These little guys are brilliant. I mean, they are, aren't they? They're just brilliant. They're all just brilliant to watch. They're different levels of these other heavyweights and all them crap ones, earning millions, hundreds of millions.
But yeah, I thought he was fantastic. I think he was up and down with the left hand a lot, which I always like from the southpaw stance. He was digging that backhand into the pit of the stomach, and then as soon as knock out CP Freshmart, we're going to full name him, or not properly full name him, but full nickname him.
Knocked out CP Freshmart.
Knocked out CP Freshmart. He certainly was in the 7th round, but as soon as he kind of tried to adjust to the left hand to the body, he started to bring it upstairs. When he started to adjust to that, he started to bring the right hook over. I thought it was very, very good performance from Oscar Collazo.
He's a solid little unit, isn't he?
Yeah.
7.5 stone. You look at him physically, he looked just, yeah, I thought he was tremendous. I disappeared down a bit of a rabbit hole with him during the week because I'd heard about him but hadn't really watched him. And I ended up just basically watching everything I could find of him on YouTube because
it's great when it's like this.
He's made people quit on stools. He's knocked people out. He kind of, or you can't do both at the same time, but he almost did both at the same time to Neomtrong, who's very, very tough, undefeated, you know, quite basic, I guess, but good at what he does. And he took him apart. Yeah. And I do always find it really impressive when somebody does what Barry was describing there, where, you know, he'd been 12 rounds a load of times, Neomtrong, and Collazo done it once, I think, in his previous fight, and maybe done it one other time. And yeah, you're winning, you pick up the first couple of rounds, and it'd be easy to think, no, just keep doing what you're doing, just keep doing what you're doing. You don't need to blow a gasket now because second half, and no. He just upped the pace and finished him.
But when you got his rhythm and certainly his balance, you can do that. We're still not making any mistakes.
Yeah,
I mean, and then like you said that,
it's flawless, wasn't it?
And it also because he's always going up and down with the work. Then for you, when you're especially when you're under pressure, you just don't know where it's coming from, and that's why all of a sudden, then, like, you know, he's catching with clean shots, and then they're finding the angle to knock you out clear. Good fighter, very good fighter.
Yeah, I think that because, as Andy mentioned there, he is a big little man. So there is talk of him moving up to light fly. Fight I'd really like to see him in at light fly is the new IBF champion Masamichi Ibuki, who just stopped Sivanati Nonshinga. God, they're too hard names to say. That I like. Ibuki, very, very good fighter, good power. Obviously, just stopped Nonshinga. He's got 4 losses, but all at an extremely high level. Yeah. He's gone through that Japanese domestic breeding ground, which is no joke. So yeah, I'd really like to see that fight if indeed he does move up to light fly. There's also Shikichi Iwata, who just recently won the WBO. So yeah, lots of options for him. Last one that we are going to discuss from the Saudi card is Ziad Almaayouf, Zizo. I thought fortunate to retain his unbeaten record, or to keep his unbeaten record intact. A majority draw over I was going to say Juan Diaz. It's not his name. Juan Garcia. Thanks, Andy. Shout out, Andy. Diaz? Yeah, I do. Too much, apparently. But yeah, I thought fortunate Almaayouf to escape with the majority draw.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought Garcia, I thought he did enough. And it was a good fight. It was a really good show opener. I really enjoyed it. And Almaayouf is a very engaging, very likeable lad, and I've seen him around plenty. I've been at most of his fights, actually. And Buddy McGirt, I think, looks at him and sees someone who really, really wants it, who trains really hard, and is a good guy to to kind of, not to have around, that sounds a bit patronising, but there's a lot of work to be done there. But I think he's happy to try and do it because his attitude's so good. And obviously there's potential there with him being a Saudi fighter coming through. It doesn't mean he has to become a world champion to be able to really carry that flag. He just has to be able to get to the highest level he can get to, basically. He loves a ruck, but when that happens, it doesn't always turn out that well for him. And Garcia, you could see this is a guy who started in the home corner, then hit the road, and he knows what he's doing. You could see that he really did know that what he was doing, and that technically was a better fighter than Almaayouf, but also was perfectly happy just to have it. And I really enjoyed it. He seemed confident that he was going to get it at the end, Almaayouf. I didn't share that confidence. No. But the other card, the third card, actually went his way, didn't it? I think.
Yeah, it's a shit card.
4-2 his way, I think.
Really bad card. That's also. I'm just going to try and find this. Somebody, Tockers, shout out Tockers, went through and picked out some of his other scores that he's had from some of his other cards. The judge, and he'd had some interesting ones. I think he had some on the night as well. Let me just try and find it. Very interesting tweet. Well, very niche that we're talking about here, but anyway. So he scored Duarte versus Akhmedov, 98-92 Duarte. So he was responsible for that shocker of a card. Nice. He also scored Zepeda Farmer for Farmer. Gave Nick Ball 8 rounds against Ray Vargas. Had Artur Beterbiev winning just 2 rounds against Anthony Yard. So he's a rogue one. What? Everybody have a look at Junbei Lim.
Wow, that Yard Beterbiev.
I can't remember that one, did he?
2 rounds, yeah.
Oh,
well, because of the stoppage, no one talked about the cards. They mentioned it after.
I didn't even know what the cards were.
You don't even get. Well, I remember Yard being ahead on one and level on another, and I think maybe. But yeah, keep an eye out for that, managers, matchmakers. Junbei Lim. You've been rumbled, mate. But
they'll all get him on their shows now for their fight, though, won't they?
Yeah. But Barry, just touching on Zizo, Andy says there, very engaging young chap. Do they need to revisit this? Because I mean, we all talk about it in the past. We've spoken about it even at the highest level with Chris Billam-Smith earlier, where you see yourself. It ultimately impacts on a lot of how your career goes, what you think you're doing, and where you think you're going. There is this. I don't want to call it obsession, but there is this push behind him being Saudi Arabia's first world champion. Do they need to revisit that?
Yeah, he's bored, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. I do think so. The problem, I don't want to be too critical of the kid because he's a novice, and he's learning his trade as he goes. No, he started from scratch, hasn't he? So like he has just what do we expect from him? I don't know what people expect. So I mean. But when they're pushing him forward,
he's on these massive cards all the time.
Yeah, that's it as well. It's
like the Campbell Hatton scenario, isn't it?
Just about to say that because somebody had said to me in somebody had said to me in Saudi that was a fight they were looking at. Zizo Almaayouf against Campbell Hatton.
Well, you'd make Campbell Hatton a massive favourite, wouldn't you? I mean, but it doesn't. Maybe this is a fight they should have then. That's fine. But I mean, you don't push this kid now. You got to learn his trade. I mean, the basics, not so much. And I'm not criticising. We've all had to do it. But some of us did it early on in our careers when we were amateurs. Yeah. And some learn when they have to on the ground. So you just got to But he has to learn the fundamentals a bit better, so he don't put himself. He's put himself in wars because he doesn't have the smarts or the boxing intelligence. And boxing intelligence is quite often not something you're born with. You learn. As you go on. Yeah, because like you've done that and you get punched in the face and you go, that's intelligent enough to know if I do that I'm going to get hurt, so I'm not going to fucking do that again. And that's how it works, isn't it? But when you learn on the job, you almost don't have a chance to learn because you just got to get through the fight. So yeah, and stuff in the gym helps, and then you got to do this. But it's always better when you start training and learning boxing when you're 10. Punches don't hurt as much. They don't hurt at all, actually, but you're in 10, you think they do, but they don't. So you get comfortable in the fire because the fire is it's not dangerous. And then when you step up a level, you're happy enough. The same we see with heavyweights, don't we? When they get hit, you see those heavyweights, they look brilliant. They get hit and they all shit their pants because they're not used to it. We've as all the other little weights, we've been having that since we were like 12. So you get used to having punches thrown at you. And he's not used to that yet. He's learning it. And we shouldn't really be talking about him. That's the truth because he's still early in his career, but because they're pushing him forward, then he gets exposed to fights, and he's going to be putting a fight in a minute, even because he didn't lose. Now, whether we thought he lost or not, on his record, it's not a loss. Yeah. So he'll move on, and in a minute they're going to chuck him too deep, and he's going to get hurt. I mean, that's what's going to happen. And Paul Smith's his manager, and Paul will know this is not right for him. But also, he's going to know this is his route to earning money, like with Campbell Hatton. He shouldn't be getting this much exposure, but also there's not going to be a couple of grand less. They're chopping noughts off. Bear in mind. You go for boxing first on the card, the boxing chief support is a massive disparity in how much you get paid. You all know this because you work in my sport. Our sport, sorry, not my sport. Yeah, so it's too much attention for the kid who's still learning his trade. That's what it is. Yeah. Unfortunately,
it's harsh, isn't it?
You shouldn't mention him. It's your fault.
It's difficult because he was on the broadcast. It's difficult because, like you said there, I think it's something that you've always said in the past. It's learning to have the shots come back at you, and he's doing that hits, in 8-ounce gloves against guys who are more experienced than him.
Because the first round he got behind the jab, won the round, and they would have wanted him to just keep doing that. But second round, he got hit, and generally when he gets hit, it kind of...
Has he got plenty of bollocks, mate?
Yeah, he absolutely has. Yeah. And I think that's why someone like Buddy McGirt, look at the guys he's trained, someone like Buddy McGirt will look at him and just think, I can do something with you. It's going to take a while for me to grind in some instincts. And that first instinct being, as soon as you get hit, do not just throw everything out of the window and start swinging. And like you said, that might take some time, but that's where he is at the minute.
But he shouldn't have Buddy McGirt. I mean, you go to Buddy McGirt. I mean, Buddy McGirt don't take you from day one as an amateur. He don't teach you how to box the fundamentals. He teaches you when you've learned that. He gives you his expertise. You know what I mean? Like
a lot of his best work that he's done over recent years as a trainer has been with Sergei Kovalev. He's like reinvigorated Kovalev. Even go back to Artur Agati.
Yeah, but I mean, he can teach you loads more stuff than you got. But I mean, you don't want him from the very beginning because he's going to go. You should know that. You should do that. He's telling you stuff. I mean, I'm not saying he can't teach you, but like you're wasting your time and your money with having someone like him. You're wasting what you got him for, giving you that extra edge. Like he's not giving you an extra edge. He's teaching you from the dot, and you might just have a trainer who just knows the fundamentals well. I mean, I don't want to do Buddy out of a job, but
sorry, he's got plenty of work.
Yeah, well, never enough as we know. But
he does tend to. I mean, even with like Dillian White in recent years, he tends to kind of he's kind of evolved now into that sort of quite typical American trainer of a certain vintage who comes in towards the end of camp and kind of
really good on the
corner.
Night.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was a brilliant fighter. Well, that's why he was a brilliant fighter in a brilliant era. He would have been better in a quieter era. He would have been better again. So he's one of those guys where you pick him for his knowledge, not for teaching. You shouldn't be teaching anyone the fundamentals. He's got you already. He's having kids who have been good amateurs and stuff like that. Then he can take it from there. So you haven't got to take an ex-world champion or a world champion. He can take you from. But you've got to be a real quality amateur boxer who knows how to fight, and then he just gets you to be a proper professional and a championship fighter. He has that's what you would pay him for. Like you want to get he needs a proper amateur trainer, Almaayouf, who teach you from day one. And I'm not slagging the kid off because he's a lovely kid and he's not a bad little boxer. But like Campbell Hatton and the others, they're learning their trade, and because of who they are and the situation they're in, they're thrust too far up. And it's too much of a learning curve. It's too cruel. There you go. Wasted too much time on that.
That's all right, no worries. Okay, moving back to Friday night in Arlington, Texas. We're going to start with the quote-unquote real boxing. So that means, sorry, Niraj Goyat. Andy, we're going to come to you first for Mario Barrios. Successfully defends in the way he didn't lose his title to Abel Ramos, but a really good fight, a much better fight than I think a lot of people had anticipated going into it. Scored the early knockdown, Mario Barrios, but then was knocked down and badly hurt himself. I thought he probably did just enough to win on the scorecards. The judges disagreed. It was a split draw. Really, really good fight though.
Yeah, it was. I thought a split draw was fair enough. I didn't have any great arguments with that.
Was it split or majority? It's been such a long weekend.
Well, it was a draw, wasn't it?
Split draw, yeah.
Split draw. I didn't have too much of an argument with that, but it was a really, it was a good fight to watch, and it kind of toed and fro, didn't it? The pendulum swung, and Ramos if of the two, yeah, I think probably Ramos will feel slightly more hard done by than Barrios, maybe. But I didn't feel like there was an awful lot to... I mean, a lot happened, but I didn't feel like there was an awful lot to pick between the pair of them.
Yeah, I thought it was a very close fight. I did think Barrios did enough to win it. But Barry, we've spoken about this in recent times. Obviously, we've just seen Jaron Ennis defend his IBF welterweight title. 147 pounds is not the the land of the killers like it has been over the last 10 to 15 years. You think about Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford. Before that, Pacquiao, Mayweather, Cotto, etc. If you're another welterweight, your top 15 welterweight, are you licking your lips at the prospect of boxing Mario Barrios?
If I'm Eddie Hearn, I'll be able to reach. I'm chucking money at that fight for my fighter. I mean, Ennis. No, that's the fight. After Ennis, no, I thought Ennis boxed okay against Karen. Yeah. But I think that's the fight to make. That's the fight that he wants, Barrios. It's a good fight to watch. He wins that. He stops Barrios, I think. And we all go, whoa, there you go. There's the Ennis everyone's been talking about. I think that's a real fight, really good fight for him. But I thought Barrios won by a couple of rounds in the end. I did, to be fair. I thought his work was just a little bit neater throughout. But Ramos can punch, to be fair to him. I mean, the knockdown, the first knockdown for Barrios was a lovely time 1-2. It was really, really lovely, just to boom, boom, lovely rhythm to it, bam, bam. And I thought, that's it now. We're just going to go to work on it.
He buzzed him in the first round as well, hadn't he? And it looked like maybe Ramos' punch resistance wasn't necessarily
He's tough, Ramos, but I mean, still, if anything, if you're Ramos, you're screaming for a rematch, and the WBC really, they should give a rematch, shouldn't they? That's the truth of it. That should be a rematch.
Off the back of a draw, I always feel like you've got a pretty solid case for a rematch.
But you know what this sport's like. But Eddie Hearn was ringside, so he should, you think, and Ennis would hope that this is my fight. No, this is the fight. Maybe we talk about make it Jaron Ennis pod. This is the fight. No, if he can unify another belt, then he can go up. To super welter with some more substance, because he's unified his division, even though partly unified. That'll be enough, I think. That'll be a really good fight to give, because Barrios will have a go, to be fair, but it'll be target practice for Jaron Ennis, I feel, and I think it makes it a really, really. He comes off the back of a really good, exciting win against a fighter who I think at that level is beatable. Even in a division where we're not sure who's going to be the best, I think Ennis is the best, but outside of that, I think it's still up for grabs, all the others. So, I think it was a good little fight, actually. I enjoyed it, but I mean, it was, and I thought he won, but underwhelming performance, I would say. Yeah.
I think Abel Ramos, I tweeted this at the time, I think when he watches the 7th round back, he had Barrios was gone in that 6th round. He was done, and the 7th round he just stood off him and just allowed him that recovery time. And fair play to Barrios. I mean, he is tough. We all saw the Gervonta Davis fight; kept trying to drag himself off the canvas.
In that 7, to be fair,
he was there for the taking. And if you're Ramos in the deep dark depths of the night, you're thinking about that 7th round, I think.
Yeah, with at a high level, those windows can be quite fleeting, can't they? And you have to gamble. Yeah, you have to go for it.
But also, you're thinking, I've been hurt. And you felt his power, by the way, and also you got a nice little balance. You got a good balance, haven't you, Barry? So when he flows with the shots, he looks quite impressive. And you're just thinking, I don't want to walk onto a shot. But yeah, I think you're right. He did. That was his opportunity, because at the end of the round, he went back to the corner, didn't he, Barrios? He wasn't quite right, and you just think, that if you're going to jump on him, that's the opportunity. But anyway, they still think they won the fight, and so that they'll be lobbying for a rematch, and they would deserve it. You think?
Well, Abel, if you want someone to lobby for you at the WBC convention, hit me up. We'll make it happen. Shout out Uncle Mauricio. Right, okay. I thought it was a great fight, by the way, for a casual audience.
Yeah.
It was perfect, because it had a belt. It had two guys beating the shit out of each other, and it had a bit of controversy. Yeah, it's good, man. That's what you want for something like that. Should have opened with that instead of Niraj Goyat against the Brazilian TikToker.
Roy Jones didn't have a clue who any of them was. He thought it was two YouTubers, didn't he? Yeah. It was so funny, like.
I mean,
Free just knocked out that fella.
Yeah.
He
knocked him out in a round, didn't he? It was during the time when obviously Jake Paul's still very much doing that, but when Jake Paul just started doing his or was around the time where it was still relatively new, remember all the videos going around. This is how you deal with a YouTuber. Just walked over to him, just sparked him out. But yeah, a very, very interesting fight. I would like to see a rematch. Don't think we will. We will see what happens there. Okay, on to the co-main event of the evening, Andy, the undisputed Women's Super Lightweight Championship of the World. And still, Katie Taylor emerged victorious with a unanimous decision win by the narrowest of margins, might I add, on all three cards, just 1 point separating the two of them. The right decision for you?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought it was another tremendous fight. It was another close fight. But like the first one, I felt she did do enough to win. You can completely understand how Serrano, having put in 2 titanic performances, finds it hard to walk away with nothing tangible, nothing on the results sheet that's tangible anyway. You always feel for a fighter in that situation. You can't, it's one of those things where you absolutely sort of empathise, but you don't necessarily sympathise, as in you don't feel like it's wrong, but you can understand that's a real tough one to swallow, that you've got nothing out of those 2 performances. But yeah, I felt like she did do enough, and she did have to win 6 rounds, because with the point deduction, obviously 5-5, and she'd lost. And it was tremendous again. You know, rematches a lot of the time don't live up to the first fight. We were pretty confident this one would, and it did. It was great. And you look at the amount of eyeballs that were on that, and you look at the figures, and I think I don't really know who's going to give you the right ones, but it was what's they were saying.
Netflix have released 65 million.
Yeah, and 50 for that fight.
I mean, that is
which is brilliant, because that was just a superb example for everybody watching of what boxing is. This is what boxing is.
Yeah, turn it off now.
Yeah, but having that right next door to the main event is almost a good thing for the sport. It's a good thing for the sport, because you think, wow, and then you watch this and you think, what's this? You know, if you're a casual, as we refer to them in quite derogatory fashion, you've tuned in because you know who Mike Tyson is, and you're thinking, hang on a second, how's he fighting? And it's a curiosity, and you're maybe not even really a sports fan. You could see the difference between those 2 fights quite clearly. So it was really good for boxing. It was great for boxing. I feel for Serrano. She felt that Taylor was a little bit handy with the head. She kind of later retracted that and said, look, it was heat at the moment, all this kind of stuff. She's, you know, my admiration for her has gone up further again, Serrano, because she's a terrific fighter and a class act. You know, she like I say, she quite quickly retracted that and just said, listen, it was a brilliant fight, you know, and we did the sport proud, and she couldn't be more right.
Yeah, easy to get caught up in the heat at the moment. When
people around it.
I was going to say, everyone's booing. The trainer, who, by the way, I don't know how somebody give him like a reality show or something. He's clearly desperate for the attention. Just give him something. I mean, who did Serrano box? Is it the name that's in my head? Was it Miriam Gutierrez? When he was across the ring and he was shouting at her trainer, I can't remember if it was that fight. Serrano boxed somebody, and the trainer spent every round in between rounds screaming at the other corner insults in Spanish. Someone will tell me about it.
I've tried one of the trainers, like when I know at the weigh-in and when in the ring they're looking at the other fighter. You're not fighting. Shut up in it. Like, you're not fighting. You can be as brave as you want to be. You're not getting. No one's punching you in the face, is it, by the way. No one's punching you in the face, and you might have been a former fighter. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
You're not now.
You're not now. Yeah, you're not getting hit. Why do you need to be aggressive or angry with anybody? Even if you don't get the nods, you can be disappointed with the judges, but you can't be going to the. When you see a trainer go to the fight, they go, "You didn't win that." I've seen that in the past. Other trainers go to the other fight, "You didn't win that." You just think, "What a prick." Straight away, what's the matter with you? Like the fighter doesn't score the fight. I thought Katie Taylor won. First of all, Amanda Serrano, like, she's a featherweight.
Yeah.
Like, she's boxing at super lightweight, by the way. Again, they gave away so much of her natural physical advantages, and like, she hit so hard I mean,
she buzzed Katie Taylor in the first round, didn't she?
Yeah. Well, I thought Taylor was winning that round up until that point. And you had to give it to Serrano. I mean, and there's a few times Taylor gets hit. I mean, Taylor's balance is sometimes it's brilliant and awful. Literally every time, like it's brilliant before she throws a punch, awful after she throws it. That's why the head comes in. I mean, I don't know what I mean. I don't know. I can figure it out. So she's bouncing in and out with the feet, and she'll throw those combination, bum 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 bum. And then her balance goes, and that's why she heads forward all the time. I mean, she's really dangerous with the head. She always has been. I don't think it's intentional. It's just a natural thing. Or maybe it is intentional. I don't know. Maybe, just because she's all really nice and like quiet Katie, she's still a fighter. You do what you can do. But I just think it's the way she fights, because she has to come forward with the punches. That whether she lands or doesn't land, the body comes forward, but she's on an angle like this when she throws. I think. And that's why I say her balance is bad. I think she quite often looks like she's a bit wobbly in fights. I mean, not just this one, in other fights. I don't think it's always taking punches. It's a weird thing, but she just outworks fighters. That's what she does, and she did it on Saturday. I mean, the quality punch, most of the quality punches come from Serrano. She's the heavy-handed, like massively heavy-handed. But that's they give us the two best fights in women's boxing history.
Yeah, I'd go along with that for sure.
Full stop, quite easy, I think.
Yeah.
They were two phenomenal fights, unbelievable. And you want to see a third one. I mean, I'd like to see Serrano go down to featherweight. Still, she is a featherweight.
There's just not that.
It's not
when you consider
there's all risky fights.
Purses for that. Yeah.
That's the money. The money's not there, is it? But there's still fights for there's Sky Nicholson, who's an awkward, good fight. An awkward fight. That's stylistically, that's not a fight that Serrano would like to be in. You still make Serrano the favourite, but obviously, I mean, it's still a fight. It's a hard fight because you got one who skips around and won't hold her feet and won't play your game. So you got to close the gap. But Serrano can close the gap. But again, the money, like the money she's earned now, the only one who can get that sort of money is Katie Taylor, unless she wants to box Carissa Shields, which I wouldn't put it past her, to be honest. Like I wouldn't. And where did Katie go? No. I mean,
one thing I did see suggested by somebody on Twitter, which would put a nice twist on it, is if they did it again to do it over 3-minute rounds. And I'm sure they could do that. They'd have to drop the WBC belt out of it.
Did Katie mention that?
I don't know.
Serrano said that she wanted to do 12 threes before.
Katie, I saw Katie, look back at the thing after. I saw Katie say, because I watched it last night, but I don't pay any attention. I'm sure she said, we'll do 12 threes next.
Well, that would make it
Serrano's
different,
fight.
wouldn't it?
That
would make it different.
No way. Serrano's fight.
No way. If I'm Katie
with
Taylor
Taylor and Serrano now, it does. The belts don't matter.
No,
it's not. They're not important. No. So you just do what it is that you want to do. Maybe 10 threes rather than 12 or whatever. But that'd be interesting.
Do 12 twos.
Yeah, if I was Katie Taylor, I'd only go 12 twos. Yeah. I wouldn't go 3 minutes. Her style is suited for 2-minute rounds, and I think if she goes 3-minute rounds against Serrano, maybe in another fight, but against Serrano, I don't think she beats Serrano over 3 minutes. And certainly 12 threes, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it goes the distance if it goes 12 threes, actually.
There's a lot of extra boxing. 12 threes compared to 10 twos is
it's twice as much almost, isn't it?
16 minutes.
See, the 2-minute rounds can make women's boxing really horrible and scrappy to watch, but also it can make it brilliant.
Yeah. And sometimes it's difficult to work out who the third minute would favour more, but I don't think it's difficult in this instance to work it out. I think it would favour Serrano more.
She can. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say we've touched upon briefly touched upon the use of the head of Katie Taylor. She was of course doctor point for it. How much did the cut change the fight? I felt like the cut changed the fight fairly dramatically.
I tell you what, it really should have been stopped.
Yeah, I thought it should have been stopped.
And also, what you don't do is say to the fighter, "Are you okay to continue?" Because no, not really, mate. I don't think so. Nah, I don't want to continue. What time is the last bus home?
Yeah, and you can't ask a fighter like Amanda Serrano.
Even if you don't want to continue, you're going to say yes. It's the worst thing.
Do you want to quit in front of 50 million people? That's what will go through the fighter's head.
No, but even a fighter who doesn't want to be in there won't say that, and then they will quit. But you're not going you're there to take the only reason the doctor's there is to take the decision out of anyone's hands. Yeah, your medicals, and it was awful. I mean, that should have been stopped. And
as the fight went on, you could see Taylor was really loading up and sitting down on that left hook, and it was landing flush. I felt like. And I don't know whether or not, obviously you'll know far better than I don't know how much of that was, I mean, Serrano, I did feel after that was a little bit more route one. I didn't think she was fainting as much as she was in the early rounds, but also vision-wise, how difficult is it to see a shot like that from somebody like Katie
also
Taylor?
It's a distraction as well with your thought process, because you feel the pump of the blood. So when you first get cut, you're not sure if it's a cut or a bruise, like a welt, a swelling, because it's the same sort of feeling when
sort of pulsing
the
feeling,
pumping. So you're not sure what it is, and you're not sure which, and you also at the time you're not sure which is worse, because your eye gonna close, or you're just gonna be blood, and just a cut with blood going on your face, you can live with that. You don't care about that. You don't. I mean, care if it goes in your eye, and you won't care if your eye's hanging off, if it's not hurting, but it can hurt. But when you're concentrating so intensely, pain is almost like how can I describe it? It's almost like an out of the body experience. You feel it, but you don't feel it. I can't explain it. Like, I had my rim hanging out, and I felt it, but I didn't feel it, because it happened to me in sparring, and I cried like a baby. Do you know what I mean? The difference with with adrenaline and you just don't, and your concentration is just a different feeling. But it will distract your focus massively. Even if it's not going into your eye and you can't see, you know it's there, and you're always thinking about that when you're having to think about what to do anyway. When you don't need another distraction, because the fight is, you've got to win a hard enough fight as it is. So it's a massive factor, a huge factor. And she is dirty with her head, Katie Taylor. And I genuinely don't think it's intentional, just the way she fights. You are what you are. I think I was a little bit like dirty with my head naturally. Not like that, not like bad as her. No chance. But I think I was. I got headbutted by one lunatic who grabbed me and said, "What, Peter Judson, hi Pete." He grabbed me and went, "Watch your fucking head." And went to headbutt me. He grabbed hold of me like that. Because I didn't know I was doing it. I look back, actually, every time we got in close, I dipped my head down. That's what she does. Every time they get close, she dips it, the head goes to the chin like it should do to protect herself. But when she throws forward, because she leans so much, and I think her balance is bad after she throws punches, she almost falls into you. And that's sort of part of her defence as well after she throws her shots.
It was something that
great fight though.
It was brilliant fight. Something that was alluded to in the post-fight interview. I think the trainer mentioned it among other shit that he was talking, where he'd said that Chantel Cameron obviously complained about it as well. I felt, and I will die on this hill, I still feel like Katie Taylor was fortunate to get the nod in the rematch. I know you guys disagree, but whatever. And I felt like that was a lot of spoiling from Katie Taylor, use of the head, tying up. I think I've mentioned this before on the pod, where Josh Warrington asked me on camera if I thought he was a dirty fighter, and I was like, it's not a tickling competition, Josh.
It's true,
though, isn't it? Like,
I saw him in he was in Dubai.
A lovely head of hair.
He was in Dubai. He looks really fit. I mean, he looks big. He looks 3 weeks bigger, but I mean, not in a bad way. Do you know what I mean?
He's in the gym. He's taking a lot more of an active role as part of the training team now with Sean O'Hagan.
I think with Taylor as well, there's kind of, she's had some real close ones. Yeah. And I think it just builds over time,
like
a narrative that
Akhmedov.
A narrative builds over time of she's lucky, she always gets it, she's a favoured one and all the rest of it. But every single one of them, like, I felt like she won those two fights against Serrano. I feel like she won the second one against Cameron. I feel like the Pursoon fights, because of Pursoon's style, which makes her very, very, very hard to score. Getting the decision in both of them, I wouldn't say it was lucky, but if any of those decisions were going to go the other way, I said it would probably have been one of them two.
Yeah.
But
I thought she lost them both, actually.
Yeah, there you
just
go.
Feel like the law of averages kind of, again,
you feel like,
one of them's going to go against you.
But that's not, it's like flicking a coin, isn't it? It's always 50-50. Exactly. I think there's a bit of that with people. They think, and I didn't watch it live, any of this, because I knew I had a long day on Saturday. I know you did as well, but you're a lunatic. So I watched it back after the event. And I'd heard all sorts about the coverage, so I muted it and just watched the fight. Really enjoyed the fight, but I know that they were just reeling out punch stats and saying that Serrano had won 20 rounds to 0.
I mean, the CompuBox, your mate, the 10th round, apparently, I think it was 68 punches they had Serrano landing in the last round. So that's more than one punch every other second. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Every second, or yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. 120 seconds.
Stats in sport.
So I mean, if that was the case, then Katie Taylor did remarkably well to leave Arlington, Texas. I saw
Renzo Mack actually taking some time to try and explain to people why what use punch stats actually are and why you can't judge a fight by them. Some of the replies he was getting were absolutely wild.
Can't
And
engage
it's
with
just-
people on social
no,
media.
we can't go
I've
down that
learned
road
that.
again. But it was, it was a brilliant fight.
Brilliantly, it was the same
It's
as
a
the first
brilliant
one, wasn't
fight.
it?
Yeah,
It was a real close fight. Could have gone either way. It's gone Katie's way. I thought she won. Like I thought she won the first one. I mean, so there were a lot of boxing people who've boxed. If you haven't boxed, I'm not one of those. But
there's
I mean,
a few on there. Shakur Stevenson was one who said that he felt
Yeah.
like Taylor won. He loves boxing, by the way. He watches
Yeah,
everything. He watches
Yeah,
everything.
he does.
except they had him on the zone the other week doing like before the bell, and I think he did some commentary and then just walked off. I think, well, I'm not doing this now, and then they had to just draft other people in. I think I don't know if that's true. That's what it seemed like, because all of a sudden then the guy was on his own, like.
Yeah, he's always got an opinion, which is great. He's always. I think Clarissa Shields was another one who had it for Taylor. On a first watch, she said she was going to go back and rewatch it again. And somebody else who seems to watch everything as well and always has an opinion on things as well, which we like. You know, we do like that. But yeah, they are the perfect dance partner for each other, aren't they? Taylor and Serrano. And one would think that there will be money for that fight to happen again. Will there be, the purses that were apparently dished out for this? Obviously, you never really truly know how much people are getting paid, but the numbers that were being bandied about were huge money.
I think they do well, because they won't do what they did on this, because
Yeah,
they
I
won't
mean,
have,
not
unless
everything's
it
going
goes
to be
back
on
on
a
Netflix.
Mike Tyson undercard, is it? It's not always.
But I think that would sell out Madison Square Gardens again.
Yeah.
Because
I think
because
so,
you
yeah.
And
said
particularly off the back of that,
you
50
sell the
million
whole
people just watched it.
and you sell the whole narrative as well is like redemption. Like I was, and, they and Serrano's got to go. We were robbed twice. We've been robbed twice. No, we're not going to stop. We're here to clean the sport. They're all like, they can do all that crap, can't they? I don't believe that, but that's what they can sell it.
Yeah.
Like, we're here to get justice and all that sort of stuff. And they buy it, and people, especially American boxing, would buy into all that. And listen, Katie sells wherever she goes, and I think Amanda would sell wherever she goes. And
New York,
New York for Island of Puerto
It's perfect, isn't it?
But
That's
yeah.
why the
What
first fight was such
what
a
is it?
brilliant
June?
spectacle.
What's the date? The Puerto Rican weekend? Is it June something, isn't it? Anyway, their parade.
Yeah, around then.
Oh, mate, it's
I
a
mean,
seller.
she's not going to be doing anything with that cut for a while.
No,
She's not going to be. She ain't going to be getting
affect
back in the gym until probably April, May time.
That might affect her career forever. Actually,
Yeah.
that might be the start of it, maybe
But I mean,
winding down.
if you're Serrano, you're only taking the big fights anyway, where it's okay, we'll go in with a cut because we're getting paid $5 million or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
you just think, okay, she's at the end of her career now.
If they get the, I don't think, like, for the money they've earned to box each other. So to be fair, man, they box each other. It's like she had 5 fights in between, hadn't she? I think Serrano had 4 or 5 fights.
Yeah.
Taylor's had 3, 2 big ones.
She went back down.
really
She
big
went
ones.
back down and become
The
undisputed
lightweights.
at featherweight, didn't she?
Yeah. And so, but Taylor went back down to lightweight, didn't she? And unified, they kept her titles, and then went back up and boxed Chantel. So she's had big money fights as well. Serrano probably not as much, but either way, that's 2 big money fights they've had with each other. One more. Why do they need a fight? Anyone. Just walk away. 2 legends of their sport. 2 legends of boxing. Forget about women's and men's boxing. 2 legends of boxing. 2 of the best fights you'd like to see. 2 of the best women's fights by a million miles. There's nothing comes remotely close to that.
If we don't see the trilogy bout, the only fight I'd like to see for Katie Taylor is Katie Taylor versus Rosie Perez.
Rosie Perez.
Outside of that, we're not interested. But we don't have time to talk about that because we only have a short while left to talk about.
We've got 6 minutes to talk about
The clusterfuck of a main event, Andy. You're going to come to you because Barry, I know that you didn't watch it and you've no interest in discussing it, which is absolutely
No,
fine.
discuss it. But
But
tell you what happened.
Andy, going to come to you. Yeah, Jake Paul. Wins a decision against 58-year-old one-legged Mike Tyson. Thoughts?
I mean, it was what it was, wasn't it? It when I woke up in the morning and saw that it had gone 8 rounds, I thought, okay, I'll be curious to watch this to see how it unfolded, to see whether my theory that there was an agreement and a script in place was
Oh yeah, I forgot you were
right
big
or
on
not.
that.
And watching it, I don't think there was, because Tyson looked pretty keen to do some damage. I think Jake Paul pretty much tried as best he could to get rid of Tyson, and then towards the end knew that he was winning and just decided to take the win that way. I've seen a lot of people, plenty of whom I've got a lot of respect for, saying that they felt he did carry him towards the end. we all kind of feel like he's not good enough to do that. So I don't think he necessarily did that. In the final few seconds, he did the bowing and all that kind of thing. But I feel like he would have wanted to knock him out. But then when he realised that he wasn't going to knock him out, he's a clever guy. In real time, he's probably computing, okay, if I can make this look like I could have but chose not to, that'll play well for me. Because maybe knocking Mike Tyson out in the grand scheme of things wouldn't be brilliant PR. Could I do this kind of thing again where I get somebody who's 35 years past their best but with a big name to fight me? Can I do it again if I've knocked somebody out doing that? Not sure. The more I think about Jake Paul's boxing career, it's been a long con, hasn't it? Oh, and I think maybe the apex of it, well, not maybe, definitely the diamond, the sting was Mike Tyson. I don't know how long he would have had Tyson in his head for as the ideal opponent, but he is the ideal opponent because you could argue that he is the world's most famous living athlete.
You could argue he's the most famous man in the world.
You could maybe, because everybody knows. Absolutely everybody knows who he is.
My mum, my dad, they all asked, "Oh, Mike Tyson's fighting this weekend."
I know. It's a bit like what my cab driver said to me, but genuinely, I spoke to my mum on the phone last night because I'm going to see her tomorrow, and she asked me about it, and I was just like, "Wow." Like, every now and again, if AJ's fighting or Fury's fighting, she might mention it, but she doesn't give a shit about boxing.
I mean, it's inescapable.
She'd obviously seen it on the news.
Everybody has Netflix. It was on the front. It was on the homepage of Netflix. By all accounts, they had good shoulder programming. Apparently, the documentaries were really well made. I saw some clips. Didn't watch the documentaries because not even I'm that sad. Shout out to the people who did though. Subscribe to Boxing News. But anyway, but it was inescapable. It was a huge event. It was 65 million people. I agree with you. I got a lot of shit for saying it immediately after the fight, and like you, there were far more learned people than I and far more experienced people than I who did think it was a carry job. I don't think it was, purely because between round 3, he's beating Mike Tyson up, and they're big shots. And if anybody's seen the video from the ringside, because they film the whole fight, don't they, with a phone, and you get the best bits and stuff. He's loading up and trying to knock the guy out. He's trying to hurt the guy in the middle rounds, and then I think the start of the 7th round, Tyson showed a little bit of life in the first 20 seconds, which was pretty much what he did throughout. He's
probably a bit knackered himself at that point.
But Jake Paul was 230 pounds in that fight. Be very interested to know what the drug testing was for that fight. Completely unrelated, of course, to anything about Jake Paul or his weight. Shout out the lawyers. But still, 230 pounds carrying that around the ring. And it's still Mike Tyson. Tyson comes out for the first 30, 45 seconds and he's winging shots, and he can barely stand up. He barely made it to the ring, but still, and 8-2s as well. We've discussed it with Katie Taylor and kind of the female code that you can sort of get your way through those rounds. Yeah, I felt like probably for the last maybe round and a half, as we've seen in real boxing, professional boxing, where a fighter will dominate 8 out of 10 rounds, and for the last couple of rounds, they're still winning the fight, but they're maybe not pushing as they were for whatever reasons. Hand injury, tired, whatever, or just don't want to get clipped, don't want to risk turning into a meme, as the kids say nowadays. And I feel like that was, if not as much a part of it as him carrying him or not wanting to knock him out. I mean, Jake Paul's not really known for his empathetic nature, is he? Or the fact that he's, well,
I see why you would watch it and feel like that's what he did. I completely understand how you get there, but I just, I just think
you carry somebody. Sorry, Andy. I just think you carry somebody from round 1, not round 7.
If Tyson hit him anywhere, then he would have felt the power, not the snap of the punch. You haven't got the speed to get the snap anymore.
Just that natural weightiness, isn't it?
And you just, and because he's not good enough, he's just thinking, what if I get knocked out? That's probably a certain stage of the fight. He's thinking, I've hit him and you haven't gone him. You haven't felt comfortable. In that last round, I didn't watch the fight, so I just imagine in that last round, if he could have knocked him out, he would have. But he didn't want to get caught. He doesn't want to get knocked out more, and he wants to knock him out. That's the most important.
Yeah.
Him getting knocked out, forget it's Mike Tyson. Him getting knocked out by a 58-year-old man is not a good look for anybody. Young. I mean, so
And he's won at that point, and he knows that he's won, so long as he just doesn't get knocked out.
Yeah, and if he would have knocked Tyson out, he would have just said, I've knocked out Mike Tyson. He'd be selling that. And that's what people would be saying. People who don't follow boxing properly would just be going, I did a thing for BBC Radio, and they put it out on Instagram, this little clip of Mike Tyson. I just went, he's 58 years of age, like 25 years past his last fight, when he looked awful there. And like, by the way, like, how do people think he's
35 years from his peak?
Yeah, but I said that. He said he was at the peak in the 80s. It's the last settled in. Like, and he still has the power, and and he still has the smarts. But I said, but his brain would be telling him things his body can't do. That's the truth of it, and I know that because I'm not that age, but I'm not a million miles behind. I'm not that far behind Tyson, and like, I know he's 20 times better than I ever was. But I'm not saying that, but I mean, your body reacts differently, and also. He's lived an awful life. Maybe not for the recently, but he has. And then people were saying, yeah, but he didn't train properly for that fight. Well, it's irrelevant whether you train great for this fight. He's still a fucking 58-year-old man. Like, he's just not going to be the same. It's not. Those fast twitch fibers, that acceleration, your brain don't think as quickly, don't compute as quickly. Everything will be wrong. And, and so it would take Paul to make a massive mistake. And Paul, like, I'm not criticising him. Like, it's not his fault. He's exploiting a market that allows you to do whatever you want to do in boxing. He's just exposed the sport for what it is. But I didn't watch him, and generally, because I was away on the weekend, so I had to watch everything on Sunday. And it was a fight that I thought, of all the fights I had to watch, that was the lowest priority for me.
Yeah, because for us, it's not relevant, is it?
I know,
I've watched loads of fights.
I mean, if you're going to watch that, you have to be really strict.
Yeah, I watched it back because I knew it wouldn't take long.
I probably will watch it, actually. So
it wouldn't take long. It was like bell to bell. It's like, what, 23 minutes?
Maybe
but it's not relevant to our jobs. No. Like, I've watched back loads of fights after the event, which I've heard were pretty terrible. But I thought I need to watch this for myself. Yeah. But that's not one of them. I mean, I did do it, but it's not as a curiosity. But it's actually one thing I would say with Jake Paul. I described his boxing career as a long con. One part of it that hasn't been a con is that he does train hard. He has improved significantly from when we saw him the first time. So he's done that part. That's not a con. He's done that. But the rest of it, he's just a clever guy, isn't he? He'll talk endlessly about Canelo and fighting established world champions. He's never going to do it because he knows what would happen, but he just enjoys winding all of us up by saying it. So what us, by that I mean boxing hardcore, if you like, do not allow yourself to be wound up by that.
But let's not forget, the one thing he has done is help give us the two best women's fights in boxing history. He absolutely has done that. He's a major part of that. Yeah. And then Serrano getting paid. I don't know about his influence in any other part of the sport, but I know that hers especially, she's benefited from him dramatically. That's the truth. I know other people are involved in promotions for it as well, so you can't solely take the credit, but he's been a big part of that. So, that's enough. And what he does is what he does. But I've learned now, because the way boxing is, to learn to just go, that's that. Yeah. This is not in my realm, so I don't care about it. It doesn't affect me. I don't think it's a massive stain on boxing anymore. It's not great look, I don't think. But nothing bad happened, thank God. That's the only word.
Yeah, that was the main thing for it.
Same with all the white collar stuff and the misfit stuff and all that. I don't look at it as real boxing, so it doesn't affect me. Just hopefully nothing bad. What am I crossing? I'm not even religious. I'm not religious, but nothing bad happens because we will get the blame. Yeah, as long as nothing bad happens, I don't.
That's always the worry, isn't it?
Then you've got to start saying this is enough.
But I do find what he's managed to do. I do find it interesting, from a kind of from the kind of industry point of view, and I do wonder what can he possibly do now, because that is just, you can't get any. It's not just that you can't get anything as big as that again. You can't get anything anywhere near as big as that again, unless we were talking before, unless he can tempt like Tom Cruise into a fight or someone like that. You're talking mega
Tom Cruise
stars.
has too much agility for him.
Yeah.
I mean, for that.
Do you see what I mean? He will want to keep going, I'm sure, but we know he's not going to fight.
I think obviously
Canelo
totally different audiences, but I think obviously a KSI fight would do extremely big numbers. In that world, it's obviously it's not the same. It's a crossover appeal of Mike Tyson.
He's too big for KSI, isn't he? I don't know how big KSI is actually, but Jake Paul looks massive, doesn't he? To be fair to him,
Anyway, yeah, he did. So did Mike Tyson. To be fair, met him in Tashkent last year. It was at the WBC convention. I remember thinking at the time, like, you're small guy.
Yeah, this Taylor the tape at 5'11" was always a bit of a stretch, wasn't
Yes, a little bit.
Mad,
A little bit. But yeah, I mean, he's talking about Gervonta Davis. He's talking about Canelo. But look, one thing that you can't you take the numbers as they are. Whatever Netflix have said, 65 million people watch that. 65 million.
And the thing is, when they throw out a number, yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah,
when
absolutely.
they throw out a number like that, I find that completely believable.
Yeah.
And I bet you they'll say we were disappointed. I mean, because they're so big. Like, 65 million, it's all right, but we thought we could have done 100.
Well, there's all of this discussion that I mentioned about Gervonta Davis. He's talking about Canelo. We saw Better BF. Why did you do it? Better BF calling him out. Get the rap song out, and then we can talk about it.
But by the end of like 2 weeks, by the end of this month, that's 100+ million people who watch that fight.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Isn't it?
It'll be interesting to see what they're about numbers. All broadcasters are about numbers, and Netflix, I think, will be absolutely in the market for the massive big things. But it's just they started off with the biggest possible thing. Like they can't, it can't, like everyone's peaked with that one event.
What do you think the biggest fight? Let's disregard Jake Paul. What do you think the biggest fight for a Netflix audience? What's the fight in boxing that you can make and stick on Netflix and you go, okay?
It's hard because it's a worldwide platform, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I first of all thought in my head Fury Joshua, but that's more UK based, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, especially with recent results.
But
If they were both undefeated world
but
champions,
for Netflix, I would massively.
What about Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia 2 on Netflix?
I mean, it would be up there. It would be up there. You just got to think about the marketplaces, haven't you?
Big fight.
Yeah, no, we purely here got to think about the floating audience who will.
But that's all Ryan Garcia,
tune
isn't it?
in.
Yeah,
But again,
that's what I mean, because he's probably the closest that you get from a crossover audience compared to a Jake Paul.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything. There might not be anything that would be big enough for them, given where they've started.
Because by all intents and purposes, it's just a little dry run, isn't it? It's a little practice run for them because they've got the NFL over Christmas. They're doing all of the live NFL.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
right.
So they're doing all the live NFL over Christmas. So they wanted to start with something that was big. I mean, we saw all the servers crashed and all of this stuff, which kind of shows the
Did they crash on the main fight?
Yeah. And throughout the card as well, there was lots of complaints.
Because I watched it. Obviously, I got the cleaner version.
There was lots of people complaining about it. Mine was okay. I was watching on my phone.
I think whatever you do to try and prepare for it, broadcasting live sport on any platform, if you haven't done it before, there's always going to be problems.
Yeah.
Isn't there? There's always going to be problems.
Yeah, like hiring Rosie Perez.
And people will kind of.
Cedric the Entertainer was good.
People would swallow that.
He was better than most of them.
But they absolutely wouldn't swallow it happening during an NFL game.
Nah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, for Christmas as well. Which was like the season for it, isn't it? But yeah, an interesting thing. I think we'll see Mike Tyson again. I think we'll see Mike Tyson again. Why? How could we not?
Yeah.
How could we not? He went 8 rounds, 65 million people watched it. And look,
what they could do, I suppose, is Logan Paul against.
What was the crowd like? In favour of who?
I mean, they were booing a lot of it in the main event.
But
I think it's a Tyson crowd.
I remember the ring
Tyson.
Were they all for Tyson?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about all 4, but Dana White kind of mentioned it. Like, Mike Tyson is the A++ side of that. He is. Whoever he fights, he's, like you said, he's arguably the most well-known sports person. He's if it's not him, it's Messi or Ronaldo is kind of, I think, are the most well-known men.
But
maybe
Trump.
Maybe he can fight Trump.
People look at social media following.
If Trump was younger, he would be trying to make that happen.
Yeah, I bet he would.
He can handle it.
Yeah, Tyson is, because everyone of all ages knows who Tyson is, because his notoriety has just remained etched down the ages, and his original fame came during the terrestrial era, where if you were famous, you were mega famous.
Yeah, there's not many of those anymore.
But 86 to 89 was his golden
35 years ago.
But they were his golden. Then he was just, what's this?
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable. Just unbelievable he was. He was just
I can't think of there is just nobody else that he could. Step outside of sport, there's nobody else outside of just like a a massive established, like if he managed to get a George Clooney or Brad Pitt, you're talking people like that.
But even still, like those, like now, like because kids nowadays they'll still know who Mike Tyson is, whereas like you could speak to
Robert
kids,
De Niro,
they have no idea who like Brad Pitt or these other people are.
Leonardo DiCaprio, most of his girlfriends who are all like 19 and 20, they don't know who he is. Apparently, I get the same problem. Leo, I get the same problem.
That'd be a big fight. Jake Paul versus Leonardo DiCaprio. There we go.
Who cares, innit? Just wasted. I missed my train now. I could talk about that crap.
You spoke about it more than anybody. You didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it.
But yes,
I will watch it though.
That brings to an end our review show. We got there in the end. I hope that the Mike Tyson Jake Paul talk wasn't too painful for Barry. But yes, thank you very much. We're there or thereabouts. So I'm going to go home and get some sleep. Thank you for everybody for stopping by, and of course to our usual panel of guests, Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke. We'll catch up with you, I think, next week. I haven't looked further ahead than today. But yes, thank you very much. Thanks for stopping by on the Boxing Show, and we'll catch up with you soon.